Good morning. It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio. We move into full sort of football season gear this week after the Ravens did win a game yesterday. Obviously, it came at a price. We know the bad news related to J.K. Dobbins. We are still waiting for more detail on other injured players. We will talk about that throughout the course of the day. A lot to do on the program today. In just a second, we are going to chat with the Hall of Famer, Rod Woodson, who, of course, was on the call yesterday for the Ravens opener on the Ravens Radio Network. Also this morning, our friend Aditi Kinkhabwala from CBS, who worked yesterday's broadcast, will join us. And we'll catch up with our buddy Jeremy Conn. That is all coming up. And the return of the Lamar-meter. What does that mean? Well, I'll tell you, just not right now. And it's a Monday after a win, so we got to hand out some pats on the ass today to boot. So lots to do on the program today. Today's show is brought to you by Superbook. Of course, use the code GlennClark23 in order to take advantage of this incredible offer. You go, you use that code, you make your deposit, and on the first day, same day, you make a bet up to $250, and Superbook will match your first bet with free bets, win or lose, up to $250. So it can be as much as $250, that first bet that you make same day after you make your deposit. Superbook.com, download the Superbook app, use the code GlennClark23. Ravens, as I mentioned, do indeed open the season with a win over the Texans. Not exactly the most aesthetically pleasing victory, but that doesn't matter. There are no style points in football. It's just wins. Joining us now to talk to us a little bit more about it, of course, Ravens Radio Network analyst and the Hall of Famer, the great Rod Woodson, is back with us here on GCR. Rod, it's Glenn. It's always good to catch up, man. Thank you so much for taking a couple of minutes this morning.
Oh, my pleasure. What's going on?
Everything is good, man. I mean, hang on. I say everything is good. Obviously, the J.K. Dobbins news is not good. And that's the tough part about talking about yesterday, right, is that, man, the J.K. Dobbins thing hurts in a way so much more than your average injury because of everything that young man has been through. And you could sense in the Ravens locker room yesterday that, like, that impacted them almost in a way that felt like it was a little bit different than your average injury.
Yeah, especially recent events from, previous year that he's injured, he doesn't play the whole year, he comes back, he, comes back last year, plays extremely well, a new system, everybody's excited, and, first game out, and you had that type of injury again. So, I mean, his story is just, man, it's so sad that he doesn't get the opportunity to show his wares to the masses. But I'm hoping he's well. I'm hoping he's in a good space mentally. His wounds will heal. I'm hoping that right now, though, personally, that he's in a good space mentally.
I think it's a really well thing. I think a lot of people only think about that side of it, and to your point, I can only imagine how frustrating, how difficult, and I do hope that there is the right system around him to lift him up because from a mental side of things, I have no doubt that it's difficult. It feels almost trite to follow that up, Rod, by saying, but the football games are going to continue, and that's the way that it works, is they do. The issue that I've had is the Ravens, the last couple of years when they've lost J.K. Dobbins, they have not been as good of a team without J.K. as they've been with him. Do you believe they have the ability, with what you've seen from Justice Hill, knowing what Gus Edwards is, to withstand this injury? And given that the offense has changed also, and I think that's an important part of the conversation because in the past they were running the ball a lot more, to withstand losing J.K. Dobbins better than they have in the last couple of seasons?
Well, I mean, I think the script is still being told about the offense, of how they're going to play and what they're going to look like. I mean, obviously we can see in 1 week that they're not going to play in a bunch of, obviously they were in some 21, they were in some 12, but that was at the end of the game. They did some 21 though during the game at the beginning of the game, which was not normal in the National Football League. And 21 personnel for people listening is two running backs, one tight end, two receivers, which is that's the old that was happening when I was playing. So it's the old school way of playing.
Right.
But I think if I think are they more suited to be successful even without that injury? I think they are because they have so many weapons, especially in the receiving core. But you got to also remember, I mean, Gus is an outstanding player. Got Hill who came in and played extremely well. I think you're going to have Mitchell in a couple, in 3 more weeks. He can come back on if he's healthy. That'll give you a different dynamic type of running back. He can take it the distance. So I think they have those type of players. We're going to get Mark back eventually. Hopefully it's this week. So you have so many different weapons with OBJ and Zay Flowers and Nelson Aguilar, all those guys who have come in this year to add to the dynamics of this new offense. I think to answer the question simply, yes, I think they're better suited this year because it's not a 13 personnel, 12 personnel, going to have 35 runs, 40 runs. Now, you still want to run the football, but I think they're better suited to withstand that type of injury this year comparable to the previous.
The Hall of Famer, Rod Woodson, with us here on Glenn Clark Radio. Rod, I wonder, from what we saw of this offense, I think everybody would agree it wasn't terribly sharp or crisp at all times during the course of the opener, and I think it was easy for a lot of people to say, hey, this is what happens. You have a quarterback who hasn't played in a while, missed the latter part of last season, and then nobody participated in the preseason, and there was a bit of rust. And is that simple enough? Are you able to say, hey, look, we can be dismissive of this for 1 week, and we can say let's revisit this maybe 3 weeks down the road and see exactly where this offense is at that point?
Yeah, I mean, just think about you're human beings. So think about anybody not playing full speed, and then you go out in your driveway and you try to either run or shoot basketball or hit a baseball. It takes a while to get back in that swing of things, right? And so it's not unusual. I mean, you've seen it throughout the National Football League just in the first couple of weeks, how teams can sometimes struggle. But I think, they made some plays. We've seen what type of offense they're going to have. They're going to be a good offense. And I think everything's going to keep on clicking. I mean, we saw the connection with Zay Flowers.
Yeah.
We saw the connection with OBJ. We saw connection with all those guys. And, Bateman is healthy. So, I mean, they have the weapons. It's going to be fun to watch this team get into rhythm.
On the also, of course, we have to say, hopefully the Ronnie Stanley, Tyler Linderbaum injury is not significant and everything's good there. That would go a long way. On the flip side of the ball, on the defensive side, I thought there were a lot of encouraging things, particularly, Rod, how concerned we've been about the depth at edge rush. I thought Owe had a great game yesterday, and I thought even Ajabo, clearly the strip sack, was notable. And even the way the inside linebackers, and look, we know how good Roquan Smith is at this point, but I don't know, somehow he even seems to raise his level from a level that was so absurd. How do we measure that versus, hey, this was the Houston Texans and a rookie quarterback and an offensive line that isn't thought of as being very good? How do we measure what we saw from those guys up front yesterday?
Well, I just think you got to, it's one game at a time. But they did play well. We had, I think everybody had concerns about the depth of edge rusher. The Houston Texans were banged up and beat up at offensive line. They also had concern about the cornerback position, and they played well. So I think collectively, first game, they looked really well. You get a win in the National Football League. You hold a NFL offense to only 9 points. That's pretty good football.
It's one of those, right? It's the eternal thing. You don't apologize for winning in the NFL, right? Like this is, yes. Have there been more perfect performances? People in San Francisco, I imagine, are waking up today perhaps even more excited about things. But this is the way that it works. You won a football game, you did a lot of really good things, and you move forward and you try to get better in the coming weeks, right?
Absolutely.
How do you measure, like, Rod, what you saw? And obviously you were working a game, and I didn't get to watch any of it. But I think it would be easy to fall into a trap of, hey, Cincinnati got their butts kicked yesterday. Maybe this game next week isn't as difficult as we thought it was. How dismissive do we have to be of, hey, that probably wasn't exactly – we should know better than to think that what the Bengals did yesterday is what the story of they're going to be as a team this season?
Yeah, well, I think we can't take that first game with a grain of salt. You got to go out there and play every game like it's a Super Bowl. You got to go out there and knowing that Cincinnati has a better football team than what they showed yesterday. We know Burrow is not that type of quarterback. You got to think they're going to have a bounce back game. It's in Cincinnati, so it's going to be one of those home openers that they're going to have a lot of excitement. So, and they want to rebound. So it's they got to go out there and play really good football. And that bitter taste in your mouth for the Baltimore Ravens for losing, late last year to them, it's still there, and you can't forget that.
All right, before I let you go, Rod, the Ravens yesterday were celebrating the 25th anniversary of the first season at M&T Bank Stadium. We saw so many guys back. I'm wondering for you, and it's an interesting one because, like, this isn't like baseball where you can win a World Series at home, and the Ravens have never even played in an AFC Championship game at home. But what's your all-time favorite moment at M&T Bank Stadium, Rod Woodson?
Well, I mean, you think about all the times that, for me personally, especially being out of the game for so much longer, is just all the times that you were together with your brothers on the field, in the locker room, competing together, sharing those moments. And those are the moments that we remember and talk about when we get together. In that 25-year anniversary, where all those guys are probably in the hallway. I wasn't able to be with them because I'm up in the booth. But all those guys are talking about different things that they've done and what occurred in those games. That's the fun part about it.
I was hoping that your answer selfishly was going to be that Jaguars game from the 2000 season, because I feel like for so many Ravens fans, like, that was the moment. But the irony, of course, being that, like, you would say, well, that was kind of one of our worst defensive performances of the season. But, like, I feel like that was the moment for so many guys where it all became real. Like, oh, no, we can do this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, each individual game is an individual award when you can win. But you're always in the picture. We just had one game at a time mentality, so that helped us.
Yeah, no doubt. All right, Rod, I'm going to let you go. I appreciate it. It's great to catch up with you, man. I know you got a busy season ahead of you. Hopefully we can do it again down the road. Thank you so much for spending a couple of minutes with us this morning.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Rod Woodson, of course, the Hall of Famer, Ravens Radio Network color analyst, hopping on with us to kick off a Monday edition of GCR. And obviously so much of the conversation today and around town is built around those topics that we're discussing with Rod. And I attempted to write about it today at PressBoxOnline.com, and I felt the tenor of the column is about sort of the emptiness that you feel after a victory. And I hate saying it that way, but it's hard to ignore it. And it's in part because, as football games go, this one was a giant meh. Sadly, if J.K. Dobbins hadn't gotten hurt, there would likely be not a single thing that you would remember about this game within a month. It was as far as football games go. Now, if trends continue, right, if Zay Flowers continues to perform at a very high level, perhaps you'll remember, hey, this started with a pretty significant breakout performance. Although, remember, Hollywood Brown started his career with an even better performance in his first career game. Not me saying that I think that Zay Flowers' ceiling is Hollywood Brown. I'm just, we always have to be careful to not get caught up in hyperbole. It's also measured by what we liked, and I talked about this. By the way, thanks to everybody who joined us for our first Project Game Day post-game show of the season. Sort of still kind of feeling this out as we're doing things a little bit differently this year. We ended up having an all-star cast yesterday, as not only Rita and I, of course, were with you, but it was great to have Ken Zales pop in, and Andrew Stecca, and our friend Josh Charles hopped on with us for a while, and you are able. We had a couple people. We had some youngsters chime in yesterday, which was fun. We're going to be doing this all season long, and we're doing it via Zoom purposely to allow you to get involved, to allow you to just be able to hop on, click the link, and join us right there in the room for the Project Game Day postgame show, brought to you by Superbook Sports and HelpMyGamblingProblem.org. We will be back 6 days from now, this coming Sunday. We will be back with you and hopefully still have a few more special guest announcements to make about what the future of Project Game Day will hold, as we're working on finalizing some of those details. But it's still a work in progress, but I love the foundation that we started with yesterday. We had a lot of fun. Hope that you'll join us throughout the course of the season. You can always watch the show, facebook.com/PressBoxSports. But I bring it up because it came up during the course of yesterday. We were doing the Project Game Day postgame show, and these things that we're discussing about the nature of the football game, and while I'm feeling so empty, it was brought up, hey, it was cool to see that the Ravens, for the first time ever, I know our buddy KZ always has yelled about it for years. KZ has yelled about, hey, maybe just draw a play up to get the ball in a playmaker's hands. Maybe don't overthink it. And we saw lots of that, obviously, yesterday with Zay Flowers. In fact, we probably saw too much of it. At a certain point in the game, it felt like, that's all we're doing today, huh? It's just throwing the ball in the flat to Zay Flowers. Even though it's 3rd and goal from, where was that, the 13 or whatever? I mean, it was.
Yeah. Well,
Is that what we're doing? Is that the play? And again, you could say, hey, they had the game in control and they didn't want to risk anything going haywire or whatever. But it seemed like a limited version of the offense. Like it was a positive and then it was a negative. There was a minimal amount of downfield throws. How much of that was guys simply weren't open? We saw on the interception, CBS showed us nobody was open. He could have attempted to throw it to the back corner of the end zone. I don't remember who the receiver was on the right that had like maybe a half of a step, and you could have tried to lay it out to the back corner of the end zone there. You certainly I am not giving Lamar Jackson pass. It was an atrocious interception. It was a flatly inexcusable interception. I don't care if you've missed 3 years of football. You can't make that throw. That's insane. You got to take your sack and learn to live for another day. Take your 3 points and move on. So no defense of that pick. It was god-awful. But, as was pointed out on the broadcast, nobody was open. So figuring out the route concepts, figuring out a lot of those things still hopefully to come. And from a pure football standpoint, I can't say anything strongly one way or the other. These are the things I just brought up with Rod, right? Like on the negative side, the offense wasn't crisp. But we all know, first game, we all spent the entirety, and we say we all, a lot of us spent the entirety of August saying, hey, the pendulum might need to swing from the Ravens to the offensive side of the ball, but at the same time, it's a lot of pieces coming together, new offense, new system, new language, quarterback who is coming off an injury, 2 receivers who are coming off of serious injury, the other one being a rookie. Your tight end is still injured. Now you're adding in your top running back being injured after he had missed most of training camp to begin with. We should have expected that it was going to take some time, and we needed to have some patience, some grace with getting the offense to the level that it needs to be at. So the results yesterday are mitigated by that. Yes, it didn't look good. It wasn't pretty, but it's mitigated by those circumstances. On the flip side, you would say it was encouraging. Odafe Oweh played really well yesterday. Obviously, I don't want to give anything away. We'll get the pats on the ass, but Roquan Smith was the best player on the field by a lot. But that's not surprising. Roquan Smith's really good. Patrick Queen was great again yesterday. Looks like a guy who's shaping up to get paid. Unfortunately, probably not in Baltimore because that's probably the reality of the circumstances, although we do know that the Ravens like to try to keep their own around, so I'm not willing to say it's impossible, but it seems unlikely. It seems like he's pricing himself to a level that the Ravens simply won't be able to go to, particularly given what they've already paid Roquan Smith. David Ojabo, I don't think David Ojabo had a great game necessarily, but making an impact play is definitely a sign of what this defense desperately needs. All of those things are good things. To Rod's point, the secondary, I don't even know how to judge the secondary, man. I don't even want to have a conversation about it. You can say on paper the secondary held up.
Like it was the Texans.
But that's the point. The point about all of it is the things that you would say are positives are mitigated by the opponent. So the negatives are mitigated by the circumstances. The positives are mitigated by the opponent. So you end up with this like zero-sum game where essentially nothing happened other than the one thing. And that goes back to why there's such an empty feeling. It's such an empty feeling because at the end of the day, the story of this game is that J.K. Dobbins got hurt. And other guys did too.
Yeah,
you're hoping the Marcus Williams news at first appeared to be dreadful. Now it's starting to seem like maybe it's not quite as bad as everybody thought. It might not be a torn pec. He doesn't think it's a torn pec. And we'll talk to actually Dr. David Chao, our friend, is going to join us a little bit later on. We'll try to let him explain what the differences would be here and what this actually could be with Marcus Williams if it's not a torn pec. And we'll need updates today. Both Ronnie Stanley and Tyler Linderbaum need MRIs. Some of the initial reports, and Ronnie Stanley was right back on the sideline, appeared to be jovial, so you hope that's a good thing.
It's weird how, I guess, eerie similar this game feels to like last year. Like it was a little kind of cloudy, rainy weather, and
well, let's add on to the
injuries.
One of the things, one of the storylines that we just decided not to talk about this offseason, and I get it. This got in the way, and so irony that today's the day it's coming back. One of the things I kept bringing up is it should have been scandalous for this organization, the F- grade that they received for their strength staff. That should have been a major offseason storyline. And the number of times that I would quietly, or not even quietly, but just sort of bring up are we just not going to talk about how it was treated as the worst strength staff, not just in football, but in the history of football? And when you moved on from the coach, all you did was replace from within? All you did was just bump the next guy up? Do we have any amount of certainty that anything actually changed? It felt like there was an investigation that needed to be done there that admittedly somebody would say, well, why don't you do it? Well, that's not my job anymore. Unfortunately, that's not. But to the point, I would like to have those answers, and today I'm certainly thinking about it again. But the thing that we kept saying was it message or messenger? Because the messenger is gone in Steve Saunders, but was Steve Saunders the one creating the message, or was he simply the one passing along the message? Because if the message is still coming from the top, if somebody else is just carrying out the code red, then the code red still exists, even if the messenger is gone. And again, that sounds nebulous. It sounds like I'm being purposefully vague, but I think you understand. If the system, the strength system that's in place from the top of the football command in Baltimore, which would be from John Harbaugh, who we know is a bit of a hard ass when it comes to this stuff. If he internally said, look, if everybody hates Steve Saunders and we got to make somebody the scapegoat, fine, we'll do it. But we're not changing the way that we do things around here. We're just going to take the next guy and say, your job is to still run things the way that I want them. Well, then Has anything actually improved? We kind of all agreed to stop talking about it just because Steve Saunders was gone. But do we have any actual knowledge that this system, which again the players said was the worst by far that they have experienced in football, for an organization that otherwise is thought of quite well by the players that are involved. But this thing, the players themselves said, is unacceptable. Did anything actually change? Did the message, did the philosophy change at all? Or will there be more guys who say, nah, it's the same S, and it's the reason why we're all getting hurt? Will there be another Derek Wolfe next year who speaks loudly about it? Will there be more guys who don't trust the team because of it? Look, Odell Beckham's come in and said glowing things about the Baltimore Ravens. But went on Rich Eisen and said, what a professional operation you run around here. World class.
World class.
But I don't know. I don't know about this. And you couldn't help but think about it during the course of the day. But the Dobbins thing is so much more than that in particular, because the Dobbins thing touches on kind of every layer of it. It does touch on his distrust with the organization, which seemed fair given the surgery situation, given, I'm sure, how his feelings were about the Steve Saunders-led strength staff, given the bigger picture for running backs throughout the NFL. I have no doubt that there was an amount of distrust felt by J.K. Dobbins. We all said, well, look, this is a dumb holdout because it's not going to change anything. He's not going to get paid until he goes and performs. But J.K. Dobbins knew in his mind, one, there's a possibility that if I perform, I don't get paid anyway. See, did y'all read Jonathan Taylor's tweet? It's the most prescient thing that a football player has said all year. The league is openly telling you what they're willing to do. They are devaluing a position that they are drafting in the first round anyway because they are going to greater lengths to devalue it. Devaluing to the point that we want to make sure we can get up to 7 years and never have to pay someone a second contract. They are openly telling you what they're doing. Nakedly, almost shamefully. And J.K. Dobbins had to say, and I got to risk further injury going out there for a team that might not pay me even if I have a great season. And now here we are. And it's an empathy versus sympathy lesson because, sympathy is the wrong thing. Outside of you never want anyone to have to feel pain, of course. It's any human feeling pain you feel bad for. If you walk by and, as you were walking down the street one day, you saw someone's leg give out, you'd feel an amount of sympathy for that. But, it's not – sympathy is reserved for people with cancer. J.K. Dobbins has made $5 million playing football and probably more money than that. Sympathy is not the actual correct thing, but it's empathy. It's empathy for everything, all of the levels of this circumstance. J.K. Dobbins hasn't had a normal season in the NFL, and he's 4 years in. His rookie season, when he played well, was in the midst of a global pandemic. He didn't get to have his friends, his family come out to games and enjoy his performance. And then since then, he's been clouded with injury. It's not sympathy, because again, J.K. Dobbins probably has a pretty nice car. But it's empathy. It's unreal what this human has been through to start his NFL career. And
this is probably going to be a career derailing injury.
Derailing for sure. It's unfair to say ending. As
right.
John Harbaugh pointed out, he's still young, and who knows? Somebody will give him an opportunity moving forward. It's not like everybody will just immediately say, well, we'll never let you come into training camp ever again. But yes, it definitely will impact his ability to find work, consistent work, have a team that's willing to commit to him as being a starting player in the NFL next season. There's no doubt about that. It's awful. Everything about it is awful for J.K. Dobbins. And you could sense that his teammates knew that. And that's why the reaction yesterday from guys like Patrick Queen,
Right.
it didn't feel like talking about another player who was injured and saying, all right, well, next man up and we love him. It felt like they understood the gravity of all of it. And it just felt different than any other season-ending injury that the Ravens have dealt with in recent years. Which doesn't mean it's more or less impactful. It felt like the human element of it, what does this mean for JK? What does this mean for our friend? What does this mean for our teammate? Was overwhelming for the guys that know him and care about him and have watched what he's been through, and it was gut-wrenching for them. Does that change what happens next week against the Bengals? I don't think so. I don't think this drags on, and guys they're mentally not ready. I appreciate what Rod Woodson said about hoping that JK has the right support around him from a mental health standpoint, because I can't fathom what this does, the totality of this does to someone like JK. It is cruel. It is inequitable. It is not right. So I do hope that's the case. But there's still going to be football games played standpoint, as I brought up with Rod Woodson, the question is, will the Ravens be in a better position to overcome the loss of J.K. Dobbins than they've been for the last 2 years? And from a personnel standpoint, I don't feel that. From a scheme standpoint, maybe, right? Like from it was interesting to see, as we talked about on the postgame show yesterday, Project Game Day postgame, Gus Edwards was not the number 2 back yesterday. Justice Hill was the number 2 back going into that game, which feels like it's a skill set thing. It's a Justice Hill skill set is better replicates what J.K. Dobbins' skill set is. And it feels like that's going to be the way this looks. I'm going to guess, and we'll talk about it tomorrow when we do Waiver Wire Wednesday with Joe Serpico, but I think if you're a J.K. Dobbins owner, you might have tried to handcuff with Gus Edwards, and ultimately the handcuff might have needed to be Justice Hill, and you might be scrambling on your waiver wire.
Or maybe it's Melvin Gordon.
I don't think there's a chance in hell that Melvin Gordon becomes the primary. I think that's by the way, if that's the case, if Melvin Gordon wasn't good enough to make this football team and is suddenly going to be the primary back, that's insanity. That's bonkers if that's the case. It speaks to either terrible decision-making, because anybody could just picked up Melvin Gordon that wanted him.
They knew he wanted to come back.
I guess, as there were rumors that he had other offers and decided to stay on the practice squad. How bad the other options are? Why were these other guys on the team then? Like, were you just – it's insane to me that the answer might be Melvin Gordon. The answer appears to be that Justice Hill is going to get the first crack to take on a bigger workload. And we can roll our eyes about it, and we can say Justice Hill's a special teams player. Like, that's fine. But it appears to be that the Ravens think that he's the guy that could handle that type of role in a Todd Monken offense. And we'll see. Are they in a better position to withstand the injury? I don't think so. Look, we can do the Jonathan Taylor conversation if you want. I don't think that there's any world where it's happening.
I mean, they want to.
But that's not going to. The Colts asking price is almost irrelevant to talk about because it's absurd. They're not going to get that. So at some point, they're going to have to decide whether or not they just want to continue to employ someone who's going to sit out and not play for them, or whether they're willing to take what's actually on the market in the trade. Because what they want is never going to occur. They know. Because they know why they're devaluing Jonathan Taylor. It's utter insanity that they think the conversation could even begin there. At some point, mid-round picks will be the conversation with Jonathan Taylor, and the question will be whether or not the Colts, whether someone can get a hold of the owner of the Indianapolis Colts and say, get a grip.
I don't think anyone can.
And it's a fair look, man. It just might be that this dude ends up sitting out the season because the owner of the Colts is so detached from reality that there's no coming back from it. But either that will happen, and then at that point, the question is, I would think there would be a robust market for Jonathan Taylor if trade talks come into reality. I absolutely think that the Miami Dolphins would be involved in that conversation, despite the fact they look quite good offensively in their first game. I absolutely believe that the Kansas City Chiefs would be involved in that conversation at that point.
They seem to need another position.
What's that?
They
wide receiver?
wide
I hear
receiver
you, but I mean, like, they could use basically everything.
Yeah.
They have a quarterback and a tight end.
Well, maybe a tight end.
Okay, he missed a game. Let's not go overboard.
He better come back.
All right, easy over there. Easy. I don't think it's personal. I think the Eagles could get involved in that conversation. I think there's lots of teams that could get involved in the Jonathan Taylor conversation if it comes to a place of reality. And could the Ravens? Maybe. I don't think they're inclined to give up their picks. I also think that they've got a few weeks to try to see what this looks like to figure out if that's going to end up being something that's interesting to them. But the scheme is the part that will be more of the story to me as to whether the Ravens are in a better place to withstand losing J.K. Dobbins than they've been the last couple of seasons. Can they scheme their way through missing such a key part of their offense? Remains to be seen. All right. We really do have a lot to do today. Aditi Kinkhabwala is going to join us. Dr. David Chao is going to join us. We got to get the picks recap, Pats on the ass. Jeremy's going to join us. I want to bring back the Lamometer. I guess we're doing a 4-hour show today. I guess it's the way it's going to go. I don't know what our other options are. We're doing 4 hours today. Hope you don't have any other plans. And then after we're finished, then we'll let Stan and Ross and Luke hop on and talk baseball at, I think, about 4 o'clock today.
So we're going till 4.
Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. If you miss it live, YouTube.com/PressBoxOnline or PressBoxOnline.com/video. Obviously, it's one thing when Jack Flaherty gets his ass kicked because you're like, he's not really part of the plans. And in the moment, we were thinking he could be the guy that could go for John Means. Instead, it's Cole Irvin who's going to go for John Means. And then it's another thing when Grayson Rodriguez is getting his ass kicked because he's supposed to be part of the plans at this point. And the last 2 starts have now been shaky. This one much worse than the last one. It's a whole different world. I get it. The Red Sox lineup, it's unbelievable how bad the Red Sox are with that lineup. Like, it's crazy to me how bad they are with that lineup. Stan, Luke, Ross, they'll be talking about the return of John Means today as he'll make his season debut tomorrow against the Cardinals. They'll talk about that coming up a little bit later on this afternoon. Facebook.com/PressBoxSports. Aditi Kinkhabwala joins us next. It's Glenn Clark Radio. Why bet with the big boys this football season? Instead, try your hand with the local book, Superbook Sports, this fall. Superbook Sports is the book next door. Just a dedicated team of the best odds makers in Las Vegas, making sure you get the best prices and parlays anywhere. And now, Superbook will give you a bonus of up to $250 when you sign up and wager on the same day and use the promo code GlennClark23, GLENNCLARK23. So bet with the best and use the promo code GlennClark23 this football season with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
Maryland drivers, did you know you can save up to 77% on tolls with an Easy Pass Maryland discount plan? That's right, 77%. It's never been easier. Pick the plan that's right for you at driveezmd.com. We'll keep you moving.
What's up, everyone? It's Tyus Bowser, and I've had so much fun hanging out with Rita and putting up with Glenn the last couple years that I've decided to do it again. Season 3 of the Tyus Bowser Show is happening this year, as we'll be all over town, giving you the chance to get to know me and some of my teammates. As we talk football, life in general, and just say what needs to be said. You can find out more about the show by going to PressBoxOnline.com/Bowser. If you don't live in the area, you can watch the shows live on Facebook and YouTube. And if you miss one, you can listen Friday nights at 105.7 The Fan. So we'll see you all season long for the Tyus Bowser Show, a partnership of PressBox and Great Ace Memorabilia.
Gambling problem? Visit helpmygamblingproblem.org. The next Tyus Bowser Show is Tuesday, September 12th at the Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill, 5506 Harford Road. It's brought to you by Superbook Sports.
It's a Maryland thing you wouldn't understand.
Where the waves meet the shore, you will find Dorchester County. Hi, this is Jimmy Charles. When I think of Maryland, I think Dorchester County on the eastern shore where it's open for making memories. Dorchester County, it's a Maryland thing. For more info, visit www.visitdorchester.org.
It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah. It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah.
Picking a restaurant to try for the first time? Let's look at the Costas Inn. Here's a few checklist items. Quality of the food, check. Quality of service? Check. Does restaurant have plenty of free parking? Check. And finally, does restaurant have delicious steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, and specials galore? Check, check, check. Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. They check all the boxes.
Make the most out of every day in your Toyota RAV4. Available in hybrid or gas-only models. A RAV4 can get you where you want to go in style. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new RAV4s from your local Toyota dealer today.
Visit Harford County this fall. Celebrate Arts Across Harford September 15th through the 30th with dance, theater, music, and visual arts. September 29th through October 1st is the largest Italian festival in Maryland, featuring entertainment, cooking demonstrations, a bocce tournament, and family fun. If you're headed to the Maryland 5-Star, stay and play in Harford County. While you're there, enjoy the scenic views atop the King and Queen seats and experience pumpkin patches, corn mazes, and fall brews along their Harford Libation Trail. For more info, head to visitharford.com. Maryland open.
Sure, Glenn may be in his 40s now, but he looks just as good as he ever has, and he's still as sharp as he ever was. And I say both those things without even a shred of irony. Find out for yourself right now by watching the show at facebook.com/PressBoxSports or youtube.com/PressBoxOnline.
All right, back in here on GCR, and I will point out that over my shoulder, you see the Lamar meter. It is coming back. If you missed it last night, I shared it on Twitter. The new setup for the Lamar meter is to answer this question. What is the percentage chance that Lamar Jackson will win a Super Bowl during his 5-year contract to the Baltimore Ravens? That's the setup now. And I asked some of you guys last night to share with me what you thought the number should be. I will tell you, we're going to only do it once a week. After games this season, we'll move the needle. Percentage chance that Lamar Jackson will win a Super Bowl during the life of his contract with the Baltimore Ravens, this current contract. So we'll get to that this morning here on GCR, the return of the Lamar meter. All right, great always to catch up with a friend of mine, someone who I care about quite a great bit here in this business. She, of course, was working the sidelines yesterday for CBS's coverage of Ravens-Texans. It's always a pleasure to welcome back our friend Aditi Kinkhabwala to the program. Aditi, it is Glenn. It's always good to talk to you, friend. Thank you for taking a couple of minutes for us this morning.
It's so fun to talk to you. You know what I was just thinking about? When we first met, neither of us had any children.
That's true.
Neither of us was married, I don't think. I mean, I wasn't married. I don't know if you were married.
I think I was not quite. I think you're right. Wow. I got married in
2012. We met
That's
in
right.
2012.
And I got married in 14. So you're right. I wasn't married yet.
I got married in 13.
How about that? Look at how life's changed. Oh,
I
my.
know, but you know what? It's just like we need to lean into being the old people now. That's where all the experience comes from, right?
Aditi, my 40th birthday was last Wednesday. And I...
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you, friend. I appreciate that. All year, people were asking me, like, hey, does it strike you in any way? And I was like, not at all. Like, it's just it's a number, right? Like, I don't feel any different. And then, 2 weeks before my birthday, I looked in the mirror, and I have this patch of gray hair. And then I got a haircut this summer, and I noticed that my hairline was receding a bit. And I said, oh, I really am 40. Like, that's really something that's happening in my life. Things are very different.
I don't know that that's 40. I mean,
I don't know.
I have crossed 40, and the whites and grays have fortunately stayed at bay. But the wrinkles, my goodness, I have a daily argument with my husband about Botox. He's totally against it, and I feel like it's something that I need to be doing.
Okay, this is an interesting – oh, God, we have so many other things we need to talk about, but this conversation –
I know, you really want to talk about Odell and Zay Flowers
right?
and Lamar, and here we are talking about Botox.
But wait a second, Aditi, because I don't know how that conversation goes, because here's what I will straight up. I've talked – I don't think you've ever met my wife, but I've talked to you about my wife plenty over the years, and there is a particular type of surgery that Mrs. Clark has talked to me about wanting to get. A breast augmentation, right? Like, she's had 2 kids. And every time she brings it up with me, my answer is the exact same. I can't answer this. There's nothing I can say here. If I say yes, then it sounds like I'm saying you're not good enough. If I say no, then I'm not being supportive of you. So I don't have any ability to say anything in response because I feel like it's going to be weaponized against me. And yet your husband is willing to talk about it. I don't know how he does that. I am not comfortable having that conversation.
Well, no. He's not willing to talk about it.
Okay.
All he says is, don't do it. No, that's ridiculous. No,
well,
you are not getting Botox. But I think that this is because he thinks it's a gateway drug. Like, I think he thinks I'll get one shot of Botox in between my eyebrows, and then all of a sudden turn into
you'll look completely different. Yeah, you'll be completely unrecognizable. Everybody like, what happened to Aditi?
Again, not a gateway drug. It's just handling a few wrinkles.
Right.
Because I'm in a funny industry.
You
but
see,
anyway,
in a different world.
Right along.
But I can be supportive.
Right
Aditi, in this case, I can support you. With my wife, I can't say anything. Whatever you want to do. Baby, I love you.
I don't know that your listeners are interested
I think you're gorgeous.
in my troubles there.
All right.
Let's talk about Lamar Jackson instead in this new look offense. And the poor Ravens who are so snake bit. Are you snake bit?
That's the toughest part about this conversation, Aditi, is like, you deal with a lot of injuries. And I think, and I'm sure you sense this in talking to the guys after the game. Like, a lot of times somebody goes down, and it's a bummer, and you hate it. But, like, you just say, all right, well, this is the way it goes, next man up. Given everything that J.K. Dobbins has been through, I sensed an additional level of emotion from those. Like, it felt crushing
100%.
in a way that other injuries haven't felt because everybody knows, his history with it. J.K. Dobbins hasn't had a normal NFL season yet. He's 4 years in. His first season was during a pandemic. He couldn't have his friends and family come out. And then every season since then, he has been dealing with injuries. It's gutting. And I get it. J.K. Dobbins has a good life, and he's made money, and it's not, like the sympathy-empathy thing. It's a fine line between those two things. But from an empathetic level, it is so unfair and cruel what this young man has been through in his football career.
I mean, that's the nature of this, right? And I think that that's part of yesterday it was a nice, tough win where there was a ton to learn from. There was a lot of sloppiness. There was, as Lamar called it to me, rustiness, the penalties, all of that. Getting those things out of the way and still coming away with a win that was not just a cakewalk. Because let me tell you, this Texans team is completely different than the Texans team I covered last year. So all of that is positive, but it almost felt post-game not like a win.
Yep.
And that's, J.K. Dobbins, Marcus Williams, Ronnie Stanley, like just and after the last few years where, again, using that same word, where it feels like the Ravens have just had the worst luck and have been snake bit. And that this has nothing to do with how they train or how they condition or how they work out or any of that. These are all just bad luck things. It's just hard. It's hard.
I hate it when
I wanted to CBS on the broadcast postgame. We wanted to talk to both Lamar and OBJ. And I know that OBJ had 2 catches, but he drew those 2 huge pass interference.
Yep.
He came back after 574 days off. The crowd gave him a standing ovation and chanted his name. His coach and his general manager have both said that in a lot of ways his signing was kind of a catalyst for Lamar to really see that they were serious, for other players to really see how serious they were, the energy that he's brought to that locker room, all of that. And again, it's an achievement to come back after 574 days, the same way we're talking about J.K. Dobbins working so hard to come back. OBJ worked that hard and is in a different place. And it was just no, because no one was in a good mood yesterday. It wasn't OBJ saying no. It was just the Ravens being like, you can have Lamar and that's it.
It was tough. I mean,
no one was in a celebratory mood.
Not at all.
What I mean by saying that.
Not at all. And I think everybody also knows the other circumstances too. And I think that's what makes it so difficult, Aditi, is like this, I keep going back to that Jonathan Taylor tweet from the summer. And I understand everything that every single running back is feeling right now, which is I don't know how I can trust you. You can tell me that you got to go out and play in order to earn a contract, but I think that I might go out and play and you still might not give me a contract, and I'm at risk of getting hurt in the process. And I think that every single one of these players is aware of what's going on with the running backs, and I think it all compounds what was already a brutal situation. Oh, it's just, God, it's retching. It sucks.
And you can't play thinking about 2 weeks or 16 weeks or 2 years from now. You have to play in the moment. It's just like us, right? Like, we can't get on the radio or get on TV and be like, oh my gosh, well, am I going to have the next opportunity? You just have to own the day. But it's so hard to do that in that profession when you feel as if there's a timeline.
Aditi Kinkhabwala is with us here on GCR. Aditi, I feel like, separating from that, it wasn't the most aesthetically pleasing football game, right? Like, it was a slog. And I think it's easy to say, hey, that's the way that it works, and this is week one, and you have a bunch of moving parts, guys that didn't play in the preseason, guys that were hurt. You bring up Odell Beckham, a new piece, Lamar Jackson, shaking off rust. I feel like the easiest thing to say is they won the football game. You never apologize for that. And it's not worth overreacting to it until we get maybe 3 or 4 weeks into the season and we see if any of these things continue as trends.
Yeah, correct. You would be right.
Okay. Well, look at that. Then we can move.
I don't know. Do you want me to add to that? You said it perfectly well. It's week one. Every week one game. It's funny because I was talking about this with one of my fellow sideline reporters at CBS about just, she's with a new crew. I'm with a partially new crew. I had a fill-in producer. And so just kind of like the pace of getting in or not. And she was like, it was kind of a wacky game. And I said, ours too, because there were just a lot of penalties. There wasn't really, like the Texans had an extended almost 9-minute drive at one point, but it was just odd what the plays were in terms of like when you could get in and get into a conversational thread of some kind. And there wasn't, I don't know, it was odd. And so like we were saying, that's week one though. Week one, you kind of do expect penalties. Week one, you kind of do expect some communication issues. Week one, there is some sloppiness. Week one, there's always bad tackling, So all of that sort of gets sorted out. And, fortunately for the Ravens, that got sorted out against a team that's still, young and trying to figure it out. And they were able to come up with a win despite a not great effort. Look at the Steelers. They had to play a team that's ostensibly a Super Bowl favorite or, a Super Bowl contender, and they struggled and got their butts whooped.
Yeah, demolished. It was stunning, honestly.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen in Pittsburgh.
The Bengals,
right, yeah.
The Bengals against the Luke Browns had no margin of error.
Yep.
No margin of error. So in that sense, like you'd always much rather kind of go through all of that. I mean, obviously you play this game for one reason, and that's to win.
Right.
So great, but like how fortunate to be able to have the W and still have your coaches come down on you.
I feel like on the flip side, a lot of people would be wanting to dismiss, because on the defensive side, I think there are a lot of encouraging things. Aditi, that there's been great concern about the Ravens' edge rush depth coming into this year. And I thought Odafe Oweh looked great yesterday. Like, I thought as far as a complete football game is concerned, he clearly had that moment against the Chiefs a couple years ago. But I thought that was his most complete football game that we have seen from him as a pro.
And, Mike McDonald, the Ravens defensive coordinator told us that Odafe had just a phenomenal camp. And he said that what the coaches had told him is just stop worrying about the sacks and the numbers and the things that people put in your head and say are a metric, and just do the things that we're asking you to do. And he was like, to Odafe's credit, he 100% has, and he's seeing the benefit or the results or the product of that by the way that he's playing. And he said he's just absolutely killed it in camp. Ojabo, of course, is a little bit more up and down, but you would expect that, right? Because you're never 100%. It's a long recovery. After
it was like his third career NFL game.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that piece of it, of course. But the depth piece, I mean, that's a very valid point, because both of those guys are kind of on the lighter side. Like they play with quickness, and they're, relatively speaking, leaner. So ideally, you want to be able to keep them fresh. And it would be nice if you can roll some guys a little bit, or if not, I mean, you just got to get out on third down. And that one Texans drive that I was talking about, you've got a rookie quarterback completing 3 third-down conversions or making 3 third-down conversions. That's not helping.
No, not at all.
You've got linebackers like that, right?
But to the point, I feel like there would be encouraging things to say, and then there would be the urge to suggest, well, yeah, but it was against the Texans. And what you said earlier, I do think matters, is that
I mean, and I said this on the broadcast, Glenn. I don't know if you heard it or not, but look, I had multiple Texans games last year, and every team wants to tell you how excited they are and how there's new energy in the building and there's this. But D'Amico Ryans is a former Texans draft pick. He's a former Texans captain. When he was playing in Houston, This is like so classic. I'm on the radio and my husband decides that, like, that's the moment he needs to run a blender, right?
Well,
like,
look, I mean, he's got to make a
of course.
smoothie. Come
and
on.
I've been out of the house for an hour and a half. You couldn't have done that before, but anyway. So your listeners are hearing way too much about my personal life.
You know, it's funny. I don't know
your
your husband, but like I've always kind of liked him, and you know, we did send him crab cakes once upon a time. And I shouldn't because he's a Steelers fan, right? Like I should never. Like we're supposed to not like each other.
Oh my God!
But,
I had to listen to an hour about the whole Steelers game.
Oh, I can only imagine. I can
enough.
only imagine. But in a weird way, I've always liked him, and I'm not mad at him. I'm not. I understand when you need your smoothie, you need your smoothie. Like it's just the way that it goes.
That's exactly what he's making. Is a smoothie.
Dude, when
there
it's
you
time,
go.
it's time. I understand it.
So when Ryans was in Texas, when D'Amico was in Texas, in Houston, 4 of the 6 years that team was over 500. When he was the captain of the team, they won their first ever division title and they made their first ever playoff appearance. So he's a guy that kind of restores that feeling of, hey, this is when Texans football was good and exciting. The sheer force of his energy and his personality lifts that fan base. And then, yes, they got a rookie quarterback in C.J. Stroud, who they hope is their franchise quarterback. But when Caserio was so aggressive and went and got Will Anderson, too, who should be the cornerstone of their defense, I think that was, okay, the Texans mean business. So that created a bit of energy. You know, I'll tell you, I was in Houston last year, week 13, when Deshaun Watson was making his season debut and his return to Houston. We expected so much craziness. Like, I'll pull back the curtain. CBS had multiple meetings about how we were handling this. What if there was profane signage? What if there were chants? What if Tony Busby did whatever? What if all of that? We talked to the National Football League repeatedly. Okay, how will you handle this? If fans have these kinds of signs, or if fans are saying this, or all of that. You know what happened in the game, Glenn?
Whoa.
Nothing.
Interesting.
You want to know why? There were barely any fans in the stands. In fact, there might have been more Browns fans.
Yeah.
And that's because the city was apathetic about the Texans. That's what the feeling about the Texans was. Now, fast forward to this year, D'Amico Ryans, his force of energy, C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson, bringing in a guy like Jimmy Ward, all of that. Every day at training camp, they were packed.
Wow.
They were turning people away at training camp. People were standing outside in 105 degrees to watch this team. So I'm just telling you that to say there was a completely different feeling standing on the Texans sideline yesterday than there was when I did it multiple times last year.
That's interesting.
Guys were engaged. Guys were focused. Guys were not just sitting on the bench with towels around their heads. They were standing on the sideline. The substitutions, the way that they were talking to each other, all of it just completely different than a year ago. So are the Texans the San Francisco 49ers? No. Are the Texans the Cincinnati Bengals? No. Are they? They're not, but they're improved. It's not that they are just the walkover team and like, oh, ho-hum, who cares? The Ravens beat the Little Sisters of the Poor. That's not what happened there. And C.J. Stroud had some moments, that's for sure.
I think they're going to be an interesting team. And I mean that. I'm not trying to tell you, to your point, I don't think they're a playoff team, but I think there could be a team that in the next couple of years we'll be talking about, like the Jaguars and the Lions in recent years, the teams that we see signs
yeah,
from.
And when you say that, okay, so when you bring up the Jaguars and the Lions, this is something that I witnessed last year with both of those clubs, both of those coaches, really trying to instill a sense of belief. It's a change in culture. It's something that already exists in the Ravens. You step into the Ravens building and you expect to win. You step into the Ravens building, you expect everything to be first class. Organizations like the Jaguars, the Lions, the Texans, you kind of need to tell your players, I believe in you, I believe in you, I believe in you, you believe, you believe, you believe. But that's just telling them. They really have to feel it themselves. And I'll tell you, when D'Amico Ryans is going for it on 4th and 1 twice in that first game, to me, that's him saying, I'm not just telling you I believe, I'm showing you I believe.
That's well said, Aditi. What can I plug? What can I plug for you, my friend? Where are you headed next? Or anything besides games right now?
No, I just. You know what? Actually, yeah. So for CBS, I'm writing again, and we're going to be doing a weekly mailbag. I had one up last week, so if you go to cbssports.com, you can see it.
Very
so send me questions. Please tell your readers to either, I think I don't even know your email address. I think it's askaditi, ADITI, NFL @gmail.com, askaditi, NFL @gmail.com, or just tweet at me at @Kinkhabwala. And send me some questions so I have some good things to go through.
I love
and
that.
then this week I'll be on the sidelines for who do I have? I have the Commanders at the Broncos.
How about that? That I think is the game locally on CBS in the 4 o'clock window this week. So that we'll get more of Aditi in our lives. Yes, it is. That is the local.
Wait a minute. Oh yeah, because it's the Commanders.
Commanders. Yeah, they typically put.
The 4 o'clock game is massive. What's the 4 o'clock game?
It's Jets Cowboys, isn't it?
It's a doubleheader.
Yeah, I think. I think it's Jets Cowboys. But yes, I believe locally.
But you're gonna get the Commanders.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So we got
2 weeks of Aditi in
more,
your market.
I am good with that. I love having more of Aditi Kinkhabwala in my life. That's great news.
Glenn Clark, you're the best.
Love you,
and
friend.
You know what? My
yes.
advice to you on your wife
yes.
is, honey, you're already gorgeous. You definitely don't need it. It's
say
definitely not anything that's going to change.
I say it all the
way
time.
That I or anyone else looks at you. But if it would make you feel so much better about yourself, then I support you.
That's it. Basically, what you're saying is exactly what I say. But she wants me to give her an answer. She wants me to have a more definitive opinion. And I just can't do it.
Like yes or no?
Yep, that's what she wants from me. She wants me to say yes or no.
And just say no. Say no.
But then
she'll
she's
do
gonna
it anyway. But it's a better answer to say
all right,
no.
All right, then I will consider that. I love you, friend. Thank you for doing this. Always appreciate you.
Bye, my friend.
All right, that's Aditi Kinkhabwala, CBS, who's the best, and always appreciate her taking the time for us after she was working the broadcast yesterday here in Baltimore. Hour number 1 already in the books. Today's show brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. I was just sent the name of Tyus Bowser's guest for the first Tyus Bowser show tomorrow night, and I'm just waiting for confirmation that I'm allowed to share it. I'm really excited about it. It's someone that I think you all know that I'm a big believer in, and someone who, I'm trying to double-check, has never been out before with Tyus Bowser for a Tyus Bowser show. So that's all I'll say for now. We're going to be at the Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill tomorrow night for the first Tyus Bowser show of the season, partnership of Press Box and Grade 8's Memorabilia, brought to you by HelpMyGamblingProblem.org and Superbook Sports. First Tyus Bowser show of the year tomorrow night, Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill on Harford Road with Tyus and his special guest, who I'm just not quite ready to tell you about just yet. But it's a cool one. I'm looking forward to it. Here, I'll show it to Griffin. You can see the text. It's the third in the green, third one up. You see there?
Ooh,
that's a cool one,
that
right?
Is a good one.
That's a really cool one.
I'm looking
forward to that. That's going to be a fun night
exciting.
tomorrow night. Sorry.
Where at?
Okay. Oh, at the Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill.
Oh,
I hope that wasn't. I hope the camera didn't pick that up, did it?
No, I don't think you could.
All right. Just realized what a waste that would have been doing it that way. All right. Unfortunately, the Ravens win yesterday, certainly overshadowed by continuous bad luck on the injury front. And at SICscore.com this morning, I saw this. Are the Ravens the most injured team after week 1? Well, if they're not, I don't know who it possibly could be. Joining us now, our friend, former Chargers team doctor, Mr. Pro Football Doc on Twitter. He is Dr. David Chao, and he's back with us now here on GCR. Doc, it's Glenn. As you know, I always appreciate it, but I hate that we have to do it. Thank you for taking the time for us, as always, this morning.
No problem, but it's a little early in the year to be chatting, isn't it? I mean, come on. Can we go a little deeper into the season?
I want to run by two concepts by you first before we get into the individual injuries, if I could, Doc, because the first one was I found myself getting into a debate with one of our other analysts here at the Press Box, Ken Zales, who tweeted out, hurt guys get hurt. And I know that that's a trope, and it's just a saying that a lot of us have fallen back to. But I feel like a couple years ago, I stopped using that because what I felt was football players get hurt. This is you show me the football player that's never been injured, and you might as well be showing me a unicorn. And so when we talk about J.K. Dobbins, like it's ungodly what he's been through, but I don't know how to handle the conversation of once a guy has dealt with an injury or two, you should just sort of expect that's who he is for the rest of his life?
Well, I don't love the term injury prone. I think that's labeling a player, and it's unfair to a player. It is the traumatic or collision sport of football, and they're all trying to work out. And injury prone is calling them that, something is wrong with them. But there's no question there are players that can be more prone to injury. Look, quarterbacks that stay in the pocket, let's say Phillip Rivers, have the longevity streak. Quarterbacks that are mobile and extend plays and run, Lamar Jackson and others, and I'm not singling them out, expose themselves to more injury risk. That's just the way that it goes. I mean, the guy who skis down the green and blue runs is less exposing himself or herself to injury than the double blacks, right? And so there is something about prone to injury. And yes, it's unfortunate with J.K. Dobbins. But here's the thing. You have to understand he suffered one really bad injury to his knee, and that led to several years, including last year's knee scope, et cetera. It was related. So it wasn't like he got injured again, although as fans we think so. And this Achilles, do injuries beget injuries? Sometimes, just because you're asking other parts of your body to do more. So I try and say, people can be more prone to injury depending on the circumstance, but injury prone is not something I love.
The other thing that I feel like has come up a lot, and you and I have talked about it before, there has been great criticism, not just from the outside, but from the inside regarding the Ravens' strength room. And we saw this utterly damning report card in the offseason in which basically every strength staff in the NFL was given at least a passing grade, except for one, and that was an F- for the Ravens. And the Ravens moved on from Steve Saunders, but in the moment, I kind of wondered, wow, it was this damning, and yet all you did was promote from within. And I wondered, did the message actually change, or just the messenger was the one that changed? What do you make of the conversation about what the Ravens have dealt with in terms of injuries, the finger pointing that's been from guys like, Derek Wolfe, even, some of the active guys that have actively pointed out the issues within the Ravens strength room, and whether or not there is something to be said about perhaps there is a concern that the message wasn't just coming from Steve Saunders, and there might be a bigger problem with philosophy when it comes to the Ravens and their strength program.
Well, I'm not inside the team, so it's hard for me to say specifics. And, was it a popularity thing? Was it a style thing that got the F-, or was it a substance thing? It's hard to say. I always think the best model is not to have a strength and conditioning room and then an athletic training room. The two have to work hand in hand. Look, it didn't always happen even in my time in the NFL. I got told all the time by my GM, oh my gosh, I can't believe you're always bringing me bad news, this, that, the other. And I would say, look, I'm on the medical staff. I'm Paul Revere. I'm not the British. I'm not invading. I'm not causing the invasion. I'm just telling you it's coming or it's here. Right. But to me, a concerted effort between the strength and conditioning room and the athletic training room medical side, from prevention to conditioning to rehab, is probably the best approach.
He is Dr. David Chao, and he is with us here on GCR. Doc, let me start with JK, because we know the reality that it's a torn Achilles. He's done for the season. And now this is the better part of 3 seasons that have been sidetracked due to injury. There will be dumb people will say, well, this is it. There's no coming back from this at this point for J.K. Dobbins. What would your response be to that?
Well, I think we would want to say that he's already bucked the odds in coming back from a multi-ligament knee injury to play, and he should be congratulated for that. But I don't know if you remember, Glenn, but before the start of last season, I sort of was downgrading J.K. Dobbins, just saying it's too big of a hill to climb for him to really be effective and so forth. And he sort of got into it on social media that everything is fine. And look, his heart is there, his effort is there. That has to be applauded. But that initial multi-ligament knee injury is just that bad. I don't think he was 100% coming into this season, and that's sort of a chronic issue. Now, if you add that to the Achilles and if executives are saying it's 3 straight seasons and we don't want to take the chance anymore,
right.
That's a separate decision,
right?
Separate from me. Do I think he can come back from this? I think he can. I think it's actually, look, it's a full year recovery He's not coming back this season, even late. Cam Akers, came back a little bit, but even then he wasn't himself with the Rams. Was it 2 seasons ago with the Achilles? But here's the bigger issue is still what's his knee in terms of the long term, and yeah, this is a concern. Thankfully, you guys have Gus Edwards, but you have to feel bad for J.K. Dobbins.
The Marcus Williams thing is interesting because the initial reports suggested it was a torn pec, and then kind of quickly that Marcus Williams got it out there that he didn't think that was the case. What should we know about why it might have been assumed to be a torn pec and what the realities could be if it isn't a torn pec?
Well, I think by video, and we posted it at Twitter and at Sports Injury Central, sicscore.com, that it is a left pec injury. Is it a pec tendon tear that will need surgery, or is it a pec muscle injury? That remains to be seen. So we can cross our fingers and hope. Either way, I don't believe his season is done. I think it is possible, even if it is a pec tendon rupture, to have surgery and return late season and or playoffs. And if it's a muscle injury, I believe T.J. Watt had that last year, it's going to be missing some weeks, but and likely in a short-term IR stint because it's hard to wrap up. But it's not surgery and it's not prolonged. But even with that being said, we came into this week on our field views at Sick Data at Sports Injury Central saying that, if you look at the field views, and we always secretly have 12 players on defense because we think the slot corner is that important.
Sure.
But if you take the secondary, the 5 main secondary guys, 3/5 of them were injured. Two were missing, and 1 was hampered. And now you add a 4th to the mix. That's why we wrote the article saying that the Ravens the most injured team on the secondary, and we haven't even touched on yet Ronnie Stanley, his knee, who wasn't 100% from his ankle, and Tyler Linderbaum with a high ankle sprain, your center, right? And then we haven't even said Mark Andrews. Is he able to play? So with all that, now look, the Ravens looked very well this week, and they looked great, and they dominated and won. But here's my worry: the Houston Texans were far from 100%. They were missing 3 out of 5 starting offensive linemen. And I think that contributed to the problems for the Texans and the domination from the Ravens. And this next week, you're gonna have a Cincinnati Bengals team that is, got shellacked and probably is going to be pretty darn angry. So we'll have to see what happens.
But other than all that, Doc, like you make it. They could be 0-1, so certainly things could be worse. Was there anything that you saw in looking at Stanley and Linderbaum? Did you get a feel at all for what was going on there?
Linderbaum appears to have a right high ankle sprain, so I can't tell you the degree, but I have to think he's going to miss some time there. And then Ronnie Stanley, we looked at video, didn't see it. Apparently it's a right knee. It's not his ankle, so that's good. But, it's going to be hard for him to play. And, look, Mark Andrews' injury was from preseason, and there wasn't a lot about it, and then limited practice and ended up missing this week. Of course, the definition of limited practice is everything from 1 play to 99% of the plays. So it's hard to gauge off of that.
Do you have any good news for me, Doc? Do you have anything that you could say that would just like did you have a good sandwich this weekend or something?
No, I'll give you the good news. The Ravens on the right side, they're 1-0.
Yes,
and they're playing a team that whose starting quarterback didn't throw for 100 yards, and that team has its own issues on the offensive line, and so if the guys up front, which are other than your one linebacker that are relatively healthy, can get after Joe Burrow like the Browns did. You got a chance to remain undefeated. So that's the upside of it all.
Let me just bring this up, and I apologize if I'm springing it on you because I don't know if you guys did anything with it. The Orioles had a situation a month ago where Felix Bautista, they announced it was a level of a UCL injury, and the immediate thought from everyone was that Felix Bautista was going to need Tommy John surgery, and they should probably just go ahead and get it done with and try to get that clock moving. But we've actually seen now twice Felix Bautista, their closer, has been playing catch. Like he's been traveling with the team and playing catch. And I wonder if someone's going to need Tommy John surgery, if that's something that person would be doing. Can we read anything at all into the idea that Felix Bautista's out there playing catch and hasn't had the surgery yet?
Well, I mean, it's good to keep hope alive. However, if it really is a Tommy John injury, ulnar collateral ligament injury, even if it's partial, long term, it doesn't bode very well. If you think all the way back to Shohei Ohtani, when he was being signed, I remember there was some concerns about a small partial ulnar collateral ligament tear in Shohei Ohtani. And I was saying back then that it's a matter of time. I'm not saying he's not worth signing, but it's a matter of time before he's going to need it, being the player that he is. And obviously he's had it. Now, Bautista here, hard thrower, the whole deal. I mean, could you get through this season? Maybe, and maybe that's what he's trying to do with the good season of the Orioles. But the clock is ticking, and the statistics would tell you he's likely going to end up having it. But no one wants to miss, the
playoffs. I get it. No, I
time.
understand. Like, it's a tough thing to do. But would you would you allow? I say allow, like it's your call. Would you discourage if someone needed Tommy John surgery and you were certain of it? Would you discourage them from doing the playing catch, trying to ramp up like you could get through it?
Well, Felix knows his body, and you can never force anyone to have surgery. But who knows? Maybe his time frame or his mindset is, look, let me try and do it. Let me try and get into this playoff push here with this great young team. And because here's the thing, it's not like if he had surgery now, he'd be ready to go for the start of next season.
Right.
It's not like if he had surgery now, he'd be ready for next playoffs and be 100%, right? I mean, either way, he's missing all of next season, including any potential playoff run next season. And even then, is he really ready for the following start of the following season? So who knows? Maybe they'll be looking at the calendar in terms of what's happening. And so you can't fault the guy for trying and wanting to be there.
All right. So remind everybody about SIC Score and what they're going to be able to find there, Doc.
Well, lots of new things. I mean, everything from a free contest every week, a pick'em contest, completely free to win a guaranteed $1,000, to all sorts of new features, sick data, sick picks, and all sorts of new features there, and a new look at the website. Check it out. And probably the most important thing for fantasy players is it's not just the health of one running back versus another. Perhaps you want to look at if you're deciding who to play. And we do have 6 scores on all fantasy players, but we also have scores on the offensive line, and also scores on and visualization of the other team's front seven in terms of what their coverage might be in stopping the run. So if you're really undecided, look, if you've got Derrick Henry versus, a random guy, you're going to just play Derrick Henry no matter what, or Saquon Barkley. But if you've got 2 guys that you're making a decision on, whether it's at wide receiver or running back or otherwise, it would behoove you to look at what the other team has and what their own offensive line health is before you make that final decision. And you can see all that at sicscore.com. And also Sunday mornings, bookmark Sick Insights. Everything is right there. Everything I said here is right there. That's the much quicker way than Twitter, where you have to scroll through my timeline or Sick Score timeline. Sick Insights, it's all encapsulated. So bookmark that.
You can still follow him at Pro Football Doc as well. Maybe do both things is the way to go about doing it, Doc. Hopefully, maybe we take a break. I don't. It's not you. It's not me. Sorry, it's not you. It's me. I'm just hoping you and I can maybe take a nice little break here for a little while and not have to chat for a bit. Always appreciate your insight. Thanks so much for hopping on with us this morning.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Dr. David Chao with us here on GCR. Of course, former Chargers team doctor, sicscore.com. All right, when we come back in, Lamar meter. You know, yeah, it's back. We'll explain it next. Glenn Clark Radio. Why bet with the big boys this football season? Instead, try your hand with the local book, Superbook Sports, this fall. Superbook Sports is the book next door. Just a dedicated team of the best odds makers in Las Vegas, making sure you get the best prices and parlays anywhere. And now, Superbook will give you a bonus of up to $250 when you sign up and wager on the same day and use the promo code GlennClark23, GLENNCLARK23. So bet with the best and use the promo code GlennClark23 this football season with Superbook Sports. Visit superbook.com for terms and conditions. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER.
It's another exciting weekend of affordable family fun at Prince George's Stadium with the Bowie Bay Sox. Last weekend of the regular season kicks off on Friday the 8th with Adley Rutschman Night. Mystery Adley Rutschman giveaway items for the first 750 fans. Fireworks on Saturday with the return of our 1K beer run. See how fast you can complete the race while getting 3 beers down. And our Birdland celebration on Sunday. Free autograph items for the first 1,000 fans. Get your tickets now by calling 301-805-6000 or anytime online at baysox.com. The Bowie Bay Sox. Let us be your 9-inning vacation.
The Maryland 5-star returns to iconic Fair Hill October 19th to 22nd, marking the next chapter in Maryland's equestrian tradition. Best described as the triathlon of horse eventing, you won't want to miss this thrilling sport. Enjoy a fall festival with local fare, retail vendors, and tons of family fun. Come for the event and stay for the experience in Cecil County, home to the Chesapeake Bay waterfront with vibrant small towns and accommodations to suit every desire. It's the place to be in October. Visit Maryland5star.us for tickets.
6 chicken tenders made from fresh, never frozen Royal Farms world-famous chicken, a family-sized order of Western fries, honey mustard dipping sauce, and a 2-liter bottle of Dr. Pepper. It's Royal Farms' new Tucker's Tenders Meal. It's Justin Tucker's favorite, and at only $19.99, it'll be your favorite meal, too. The new Tucker's Tenders Meal, available only at Royal Farms. Now you can kick back, relax, and eat like a champion. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
It's a Maryland thing you wouldn't understand.
Where the waves meet the shore, you will find Dorchester County. Hi, this is Jimmy Charles. When I think of Maryland, I think Dorchester County on the Eastern Shore, where it's open for making memories. Dorchester County, it's a Maryland thing. For more info, visit www.visitdorchester.org.
It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah. It's a Maryland thing. Hell yeah.
What's up, everyone? It's Tyus Bowser, and I've had so much fun hanging out with Rita and putting up with Glenn the last couple years that I've decided to do it again. Season 3 of the Tyus Bowser Show is happening this year, as we'll be all over town, giving you the chance to get to know me and some of my teammates. As we talk football, life in general, and just say what needs to be said. You can find out more about the show by going to pressboxonline.com/Bowser. If you don't live in the area, you can watch the shows live on Facebook and YouTube. And if you miss one, you can listen Friday nights at 105.7 The Fan. So we'll see you all season long for the Tyus Bowser Show, a partnership of Pressbox and Great Ace Memorabilia.
Gambling problem? Visit helpmygamblingproblem.org. The next Tyus Bowser Show is Tuesday, September 12th at the Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill, 5506 Harford Road. It's brought to you by Superbook Sports.
Make sure you're tuned in every Tuesday for Pressbox Fantasy Football analyst Joe Serpico to get you ready for your Waiver Wire Wednesday, brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. And if you have other fantasies you want fulfilled, subscribe to Glenn and Jeremy Conn's OnlyFans page at... Wait, are people supposed to know about that?
Yeah, I need the microphone on. That's the.
I was given get used to the new bumpers.
Yeah. I was given the permission to say it. Tyus Bowser's guest tomorrow night for the first Tyus Bowser Show of the season at the Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill will be Rashad Bateman. Rashad Bateman will be the guest for the first Tyus Bowser Show of the 2023 season. Hope that you can come out and join us. The Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill on Harford Road tomorrow night. Rub elbows with some of your favorite players. You can also watch the show live, facebook.com/PressBoxSports, youtube.com/PressBoxOnline, or you'll be able to listen to it throughout the course of the week here on GCR and Friday night on 105.7 The Fan, the Tyus Bowser Show with special guest Rashad Bateman. Tomorrow night, Hamilton Sports Bar and Grill. For more details, PressBoxOnline.com/Bowser. Ron is in Owings Mills. Ron, good morning, bud. How you doing?
Well, what's going on, man?
Well, J.K. Dobbins getting hurt sucked, but things could be worse.
Yeah. I mean, it's just I agreed with the decision to rest the folks in the preseason. I expected Russ when you do that. This team's cursed, man. This team's cursed.
What do we do about that? How do we fix it?
I don't know. I mean, they fired the strength thing or let him go or whatever the press release said. I don't know. I don't know, like, specifically with Dobbins ramping him up. I don't know what they did. I don't know, man. I'm just very frustrated. Lamar didn't look good. The offensive line was bad. I want to be fair to Lamar because he hasn't played at all. But I was disappointed with how he played, Glenn. I mean, I know the offense is going to take some time with the new coordinator. I get that. I'm just saying, and there was bad football the whole weekend. So I'm going to give it another week because I need to be a little rational. I feel a little better this morning.
Well,
but
look at you! It's a turning over a new leaf, Ron.
Yesterday I was upset. Yesterday I was. I don't care. Like, see, like this is the difference between me and other fans. Like, there are other people that say that just give them the benefit of the doubt. It's a win. That's great. Yesterday I was upset because I wanted to see a little bit more. Like, there was a lot to this offense. I didn't think it would happen all right away. I knew there would be some rust. I didn't expect them to look as bad as they did for a whole half. I thought there would be some series where they didn't look in sync. They didn't look good for a half.
Yeah.
That first half was bad.
Yep.
So we'll see. I think Flowers is legit. I think the Dobbins thing, I don't know. We're just going to have to see how that plays out. I think the AFC North, to me, is going to be a battle the whole year. So we'll see. That's just my Ravens thing. I don't have a lot for you on that. I do want to say I think Novak Djokovic is the greatest player of all time.
Well, I don't think there's any debate about that any longer. Yeah, I mean, yeah. I actually started to think that a few years ago, and now it's just, I mean, it's absurd. It's absurd. Look, the disappointing part is we didn't get the match we wanted, right? Like, it's twofold. We didn't get the match we wanted, and Medvedev was not nearly the same guy yesterday as he was on Friday. Like, that guy on Friday would have beaten anybody in the world, right?
Yeah, he would have.
It's tennis is such a wild sport because we remember what happened 2 years ago when Medvedev blitzed Djokovic right in the final, and then yesterday he had nothing, he looked hopeless, and it was a completely different guy than what we saw on Friday. A reminder of the mental aspect of the sport overwhelmingly, but there's no debate about Djokovic. The story from the weekend was of course Coco, which is just unbelievable to me because the way Sabalenka was playing in the first set, I thought that was on its way to being a blowout. Sabalenka is definitely the definition of a player that struggles between the ears, and all of a sudden she just starts missing shots, and it all comes falling apart for her. And Coco withstood that blitz in the first set, and how she has improved. I said something about this on Twitter, Ron. Like, the Coco Gauff story is amazing because she was faced with a level of expectation that was drastically unfair for a 15-year-old. She was faced with that. 15 years old. She was faced with this. Like, she was supposed to be Serena Williams. And for her to have handled that, like, we think about the Jennifer Capriati story, right? We think about so many stories of young people that were faced with that and how she and her family have handled that with grace. She's never been standoffish. She's never been, combative with people that had expectations for her. And for her to lose to Sophia Kenin in the first round at Wimbledon, right? Like, and then to come back and have one of the great summers that we've ever. It's not just that she won the U.S. Open. It's that she, remember, she won a 1,000 event just weeks beforehand, and she won in D.C. Yeah, you saw her there. It's that story is unreal, and I don't think it's being appropriately told yet. How truly incredible it is that Coco has withstood all of this.
I think you hit it really well. I think the expectations, I was really happy for her because she, to me, you're correct. She unfair expectations on her. She's always had talent since, like you said, such an early age. I've always liked her. She's always carried herself well. I've seen her around the grounds with fans.
Yep.
She's just a class act. And she's always had talent. I do think the Brad Gilbert thing, starting in D.C., I watched a lot of the practices, and I think a lot of it, I think she gave credit to her dad. Of course, her dad did so much for her, but I do think that was the right decision to bring in a Brad Gilbert in her team. I do think that helped. I'm not going to say was that the only reason. She was primed to make a run eventually. But I think the DC tournament gave her confidence. Like, she was just playing at a high. I thought, look, like, did I think she would win the U.S. Open? I didn't say that, but I watched.
No, I think we all thought she had a chance. Yeah,
I thought she had a chance.
After she beat Iga, we all kind of said the same thing. Okay,
Yeah.
she can win the U.S. Open now.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't know that she would, but once she beat Iga, that was the mountain for her, right? Like, that was the thing that at that point she could believe that she could beat anybody that she played against the moment that she beat Iga. And
I
she
think
didn't.
her serve was better.
Yeah.
Like, just like she was winning more free points on her, so she could always play the defense. But there were times where she went for too much. I thought she played with a little bit more margin, but she's always had the defense. I just think there's a couple little tweaks, but it was the confidence of the summer, and you got to give her credit. Like, she played a lot of tennis. Like, and Djokovic just played Cincinnati. They both won Cincinnati.
Yep.
But I was really happy for her because I actually
was
do think.
awesome.
Look, there's a lot of negativity. I know I can be a negative fan at times, but she is one of those people I will always defend because
She's a light, man.
And I think this is the beginning for her. I think she'll win more slams.
100%. 100%. It's such a cool story. I had goosebumps, dude. Like, I had goosebumps watching that on Saturday because I think a lot of people are just excited about a young American player, and it's not to know the true capacity of everything involved there. It is overwhelming. What an awesome thing it is.
And Glenn, I want to just leave you with this on last thing on Djokovic. I was happy for him. Like, when he lost to Medvedev at the U.S. Open, he was going for the fourth straight. The crowd finally gave him some support. He's always not gotten the support. I think, like, with Federer out of the game, Nadal has been hurt. I think the U.S. fans, especially in the U.S., because he wasn't able to play the event, because I don't want to get into all that. But I do think he's getting now. It's been widely known for the past couple of years he's the best, but I think he's getting the love now that I think he deserves. I think it's like the tennis community. Roger and Nadal will always be loved because of what they are, what they mean, and I'm not taking any – they're all three of them are great. I'm happy for Novak that he is getting the love from the people. Like, to me, it's nice to see because
I agree.
He really he's turned it around with the fans, and I'm happy for him.
I agree. Appreciate it, Ron. Good to hear from you, buddy.
All right, man. Take it easy.
Before we call Jeremy, let's do this. It is back. The Lamar-o-meter. If you weren't with us during the off season, this was quite the adventure, as every day we updated the Lamar-o-meter to try to reflect where we believe the percentage chance was that Lamar would be the Baltimore Ravens starting quarterback for week 1 of the NFL season. Of course, we know that ultimately proved to be 100%. Woo! As Lamar was indeed the starting quarterback yesterday for week 1 of the NFL season. So when Lamar signed his contract, I had a lot of people reach out like, "What are you going to do now?" And people really enjoyed it. It was fun. It was silly, but yet we tried to. What we did was the definition of a radio bit. We attempted to treat it as seriously as possible for something that we knew inherently was silly. And for anyone that enjoys talk radio, like that to me is when talk radio is at its best. You take something very serious or very silly and you treat it very seriously. And you're in on it, and you allow everybody else to be in on it as well. Not everybody always is. A lot of people don't understand it. A lot of people don't get it. A lot of people try to be negative about it because they don't fully understand it. I'm a fan of the Sports Junkies down in D.C. Everybody knows that. Those are my guys. I learned a lot about how to do radio from them, and I think I strive to be entertaining in that way, to walk the line between hardcore sports conversation and fun and life and figure out where in between you can be entertaining. And so the Lamar-o-meter was a good time. And we had some ideas for other things that we could do. People enjoyed the ride. They wanted more of it. We actually literally made a completely different meter that you'll never see.
Maybe.
I say that. Yeah. There's reason for it. And, if you want to ask me about it sometime privately, I'll be happy to talk to you about it. But that we made a different meter with a different person's face and a different name. I say we. Gwen's Chili Bowl. Sorry, I was about to say Jen. Gwen's Chili Bowl made the meter for us, and we're very thankful for that. But we decided ultimately to stick with the Lamar-o-meter. It's here, first of all. That's the helpful part. It's right there over my shoulder. So what we're going to do every week during the season is we're going to reflect. And we might do it in the offseason based on, like, hey, did they go out and get a certain player?
Emergency
Right.
readings. Yeah.
We are going to change the number based on this premise. What is the percentage chance that Lamar Jackson will win a Super Bowl during the 5-year contract that he signed with the Ravens?
Oh, this is easy. It's like 100.
Oh, yeah? That's where you think the
yes.
meter should be? By the way, the first person that responded said 100. The second person said 99. I'm like, okay, not in on the bid. Don't get it. Now, again, if you understand the meter, you understand that what I'm doing, I'm attempting to do scientifically, and you say that's absurd. I know it is, but I'm still attempting to do it. I'm still attempting to come up with a fair, reflective number. And then there were days during the first run of the Lamar meter where we'd hear reports like, oh, I don't know.
He wants out.
The day, of course, the day that the trade request was reported, the meter crashed to its lowest number that it ever was. But there were days where there were encouraging signs, like teams that we thought might be in on quarterbacks were
signing quarterbacks,
or doing
trading,
or saying they simply just weren't on Lamar Jackson. They'd rather have Desmond Ritter be their quarterback, who
was 15 for 18 yesterday.
Quite a yeah. How'd that go for them?
They did win.
Yeah, quite a choice. Quite a choice.
They decided not to use Drake London at all.
Yeah, that was a weird bit. It was a real weird bit, man. I don't know.
They
what that was all
targeted Kyle
about.
Pitts 3
Zero,
times.
Zero for Drake London. But if you're drafting Atlanta Falcons, well, I guess Bijan had a huge game.
Yes, Bijan
right?
did have a good game.
So he's pretty good. Anyway, the moral of the story being, that's how we move the meter. And similarly, it's not the meter will not just be about like Lamar's performance. It's not just a how did Lamar play on Sunday. It will reflect all sorts of other things. What else is going on in the division? What else is going on in the conference? Does the team look like a team that's ready to win a Super Bowl? If Lamar had thrown for 560 yards against the Texans, but the Ravens had lost because they gave up 63 points, the meter probably would not be that high despite the fact that Lamar Jackson played quite well. Get it? This is not – there are people that immediately I got the guys on social media. Oh, what? So it's Lamar's fault that other guys are getting hurt? First of all, you haven't even seen what the meter's reading at.
They're already like, oh, why are you having it 0?
Second of all, Lamar is the guy that signed the 5-year contract, so he's the centerpiece of it. But what I'm really saying is, what is the percentage chance the Ravens will win a Super Bowl? It's just that I'm using Lamar's 5-year contract as the barometer. Yeah,
the Lamometer.
Lamometer, if you will, for that. So I hope that we can all understand this and have fun with it and not make it something that it isn't. As always, most of you will. If you're here, you probably will. Social media, we'll see how it goes.
All right, fine. So with that being said, I guess my reading should be at 99 then.
99.
Yeah, I'll be
But
modest.
really do that. I'll ask you, really, if you had to set a reading, where would your first reading be?
I think I'd be probably pretty close to about 50-50, I guess. I mean, I think...
Really?
Yeah.
I'm saying from a scientific standpoint, not from I feel like you're allowing your emotion
That's probably true.
to get involved.
Probably true.
I'm saying you've got to separate emotion and only look at it from a scientific
standpoint.
because,
Of winning in
because
a 5-year
somebody would
period.
say, first of all, divide 100 by 32, right? And there's your number.
Yeah.
Right? Because every team has equal.
Like
we
a
all
3% chance, yeah.
The thing is, we all know that's not actually the case. Like, we just know that there are some teams that have better opportunities than other teams.
Desmond Ritter, you think he'll win a Super Bowl?
Yeah, right? So separate your emotion, separate your I believe in Lamar, separate that, and try to scientifically analyze it from all of the various factors and tell me where you think the number should be.
I mean, this is a team that is a perennial contender. And they are
usually
always
a contender.
in the top third in terms of teams that are that going into the season. So I definitely think at least it's gonna feel high, I guess. But I mean, like I'm high on this team. I think that they are well run. What?
It's the emotion. That's,
Okay.
I'm asking a 20-year-old to be able to have a 40-year-old conversation. Go ahead.
I'm gonna
Just say what your
I'm
number
gonna
is.
Stick with 49%.
Jesus
then.
Christ.
49%.
There is a
chance.
reason why you are not the one in the lab. There's a reason why we're not having you run the computations.
I think that in 5 years, this team should. It's gonna be. It'll be a
by the way,
disappointment.
I realized
if they
I
don't
told
win a
you
Super
that
Bowl.
it's funny because I texted what the first number was going to be to John Colson last night, and I realized I said the wrong. Somehow between last night and today, I like dropped the percentage. No, the first number I decided last night. I'm going to roll with it. First reading of the Lamar meter.
Is that 20?
20%.
20%.
20%.
All right.
Is the first reading on the Lamar meter. If you
hate them.
You want to go ahead. Thank you, Griffin. You want to go ahead and snap your picture so we can call Jeremy because Here we are being jerks to Jeremy again and calling him 10 minutes late. That's the first reading of the new Lamar meter, is 20%. And again, the question is percentage chance. And maybe we should phrase it as the Ravens will win the Super Bowl, not Lamar. Okay. Because if he wins the Super Bowl with the Seahawks, I don't care.
So this contract is traded to the...
Percentage chance that the Ravens win a Super Bowl during the length of the Lamar Jackson's 5-year deal, current 5-year deal with the Ravens. So that's what we're rolling with. And every Monday, we will sort of update where the Ravens find themselves. Why 20%, you ask? Well, somebody would say that's actually probably a bit too high scientifically. The AFC is loaded. And even though Joe Burrow didn't play well yesterday, and even though the Chiefs lost their first game, the notion that all of a sudden those teams have completely come back to earth is not one that I'm willing to entertain. Dolphins looked really good. Boy, did they look good yesterday. My, oh my. How about a world in which the Raiders are in first place in the AFC West? How about that world? It's going to be hard to break through. It's going with this many good quarterbacks, it's going to be hard to break through, and it's going to require me seeing it. Now, to Griffin's point, the reason why my number isn't lower is because I do have faith, and I do think the Ravens, for the most part, make good decisions. Should I have dipped it a bit more based on J.K. Dobbins getting hurt? Perhaps. But right now, I generally like the trajectory of the Baltimore Ravens. I generally like how they've handled their business. I just, 20%. 20% is the number. And I think I'm being more than fair by making it that number. But we'll update it every Monday. We will be on here normally at the top of the show. Today we had Rod Woodson join us right at the top of the show, so it just didn't work out that way. Normally, the first thing we'll do on Monday mornings is we'll come in here and we'll give you a Lamar meter update. Again, the scenario moving forward, percentage chance the Ravens win a Super Bowl during the 5-year contract that Lamar Jackson signed. Now, it is also a Monday, and we'll never figure out what time we're doing these things. Sometimes it's his fault. This week, again, it's our fault. He is our friend Jeremy Conn, Big Bad Morning Show, 105.7 The Fan, ConcreteLocks.com, PressBoxOnline.com, where you find some picks as well. He is back with us here on GCR. What's going on, buddy? How are you?
What's up, man? Things are good.
So we're doing a bit now, and I brought back the Lamar meter because I need that those luscious clicks. I just need them. So all of that social media interaction, I keep being told that you got to do more of that. So we're bringing back the Lamar meter. We're going to update it weekly during the course of the season. And the premise is the percentage chance the Ravens win a Super Bowl during the 5-year contract that Lamar signed. And we will update it each week based on the results of the game and other things that are going on. But if I gave it to you and said you have to set the first number, percentage chance the Ravens win a Super Bowl during this 5-year contract that Lamar signed, what would have been the number that you would have started with?
I mean, I probably would have started off lower, like a 10%.
Okay.
And that's not a knock on the Ravens. I do think it's just incredibly, like, how difficult it is to just win. And inherently, I think having Lamar locked up and no longer on a rookie deal does two things. It then allows you to know how much money you have to spend elsewhere, and then it also doesn't allow you to have a ton of money to spend elsewhere in a lot of situations. But yeah, look, I think he's talented enough. I don't know that we can base anything off of what we saw yesterday. The thing that gives me a little bit more pause is just seeing these injuries and how things have gone. So, and even with Lamar still has to show that he can stay healthy for a full season. I mean, the JK stuff, which I know we'll touch on, it's just gut-wrenching, man.
God,
I feel terrible for him.
It's awful, man. By the way, my number is 20, and I admit, I think that's bullish, right? Like, I think that I'm being more fair. But part of that is I do think it matters that the Ravens typically make good decisions and have typically built winners, and that at some point it might just be that they get the good luck that season, and that's the season where they're able, when we're talking about a 5-year window, if a team's regularly in it, I do think that the math sways a little bit towards them in that process versus a team that's going to be built to win for 1 year, a la the Rams a couple years ago, although they looked good yesterday. All you said is relevant, though, and I'm having a difficult time talking about JK because it's a twofold conversation. It's what you brought up, which is just how truly gutting this is, how cruel it feels for this young man with so much talent to be 4 years now into his NFL life and to have not had a single normal season yet, right? Like even his rookie season was in the midst of a pandemic. So like his friends, his family weren't able to like come out and celebrate and enjoy it. He has not been able to just have a normal NFL season 4 years in. And while I'm not suggesting that his career is over, there is no doubt that it will be derailed. Like, it will be very difficult for J.K. Dobbins to be looked at as a starting or franchise-caliber player this offseason when he's barely been able to play for 3 seasons. So it's going to be impacted significantly. It's inequitable, it's unfair, it's cruel, it's awful. I can't come up with enough words to describe it.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like Sisyphus, except when the ball rolls back down the hill, it rolls over top of him.
Right.
God,
that is a good way. Did you steal that from someone else? That's a damn good analogy.
No, I just made that up on the spot.
Oh, damn, look at you.
That's how I roll sometimes. But in all seriousness, like, I said this years ago, like I'm not a guy. I don't care if it's the opposing team. I don't care if it's the player I like the least. I don't root for anybody to get hurt, and I hate seeing injuries. And like, just think about you're given this God-given ability or whatever. You have all this talent in the world. You could be. I mean, he's averaging almost 6 yards a carry, and he just can't stay healthy. It wasn't a problem he had in college. It wasn't a problem. He gets here, the knee injury, the rescope. Now the Achilles, and an Achilles is an absolute bitch, man. Like, and you know it when the Achilles tears. Like, you know what you have to go in for, and you're like, because I mean, most guys don't even realize it's happening, and then you hear that snap, and then if you watch it on video, not this one, but I remember the one of the Chargers running backs years ago, you could see it just roll up, and I was playing basketball with a buddy of mine that tore his Achilles, and he actually got kicked in the back of the league on a rebound, and when he landed, you could just see popped, you heard a snap, and he dropped. And I mean, it's just strange, and it takes a long time to recover from. And so now you look at it from all the different levels with JK. It's not just, okay, I know now I have to sign a prove-it deal.
Right.
Okay, even after I sign that prove-it deal and I prove it for 1 year, is 1 year enough to prove it to where somebody's going to give me a multi-year deal? So, like, I just think the whole thing is F. So now he becomes one of these guys that ultimately is going to keep signing 1 or 2 year deals just to stay in the league if he's even able to come back.
Other than that, though, I mean, that's
great.
Yeah, that's the reality, and it sucks for him. And then on the flip side, Jeremy, it's we are so dismissive about running backs in the NFL at the moment, and yet we all know in Baltimore that the last couple of seasons there has been a dramatic difference between the quality of the Baltimore Ravens when J.K. Dobbins has been on the field and when he's not been on the field. And having this conversation is tough because the next thing is, are the Ravens in a better situation to withstand losing J.K. Dobbins this year than they have been in past years? And the easiest thing to say was at least the scheme is not quite as run-dependent as it's been for the last couple of years, but I still don't know, right? Like, it felt like yesterday the number 2 back on this team was not Gus Edwards. It felt like it was Justice Hill. Now, Gus Edwards did get more work as the game went along, and maybe he moves into the primary back role, but I think we all know that the Ravens want in the Todd Monken offense to be able to throw the ball more to a running back. And while Gus Edwards is capable of catching the football, getting Gus Edwards into space is not something that is going to be a high priority. He's supposed to be the guy that takes on contact. So does Justice Hill become more of the featured running back for this offense? And how do you have a whole lot of confidence in that if that's the case?
I mean, or does it end up becoming, am I getting the kid Mitchell, right?
Right, Keaton Mitchell, yeah.
Does he end up getting some opportunities here? Because let's be honest, like Justice Hill has been in his role as a third down back, and I think they like him there and don't mind using him, giving him some extra carries here or there in other roles. But, I mean, how is the health of Gus Edwards? Is he 100% coming back? And how many carries are they willing to give him a game? So maybe it does become something where you get the 50-50 split from the young guy and Mitchell and Gus Edwards, and then maybe Justice is working. I don't know. I mean, maybe you end up becoming the Buffalo Bills if things keep going awry, where Josh Allen is your running back and everybody else is just running out for pass.
I don't know if you – or honestly, the way that we saw it yesterday, that essentially they say, well, Zay Flowers is part of the run game now, right? Like, and this is something that we've seen from a lot of teams over the years where underneath passes are the part of how they run the football. And given how addicted the Ravens were to it yesterday, I have no reason to think it's going away. Yeah. Like, it was an encouraging thing to start the game. Like, oh, they're running plays just to get the ball in a playmaker's hands. My kingdom for this. I've been waiting for this for years. And then as the game went on, it was like, okay, but maybe not on every play.
Yeah, Did we try it on the left side yet?
Right.
Yeah, we did. We tried it the right and the left, and
Right.
it didn't work. Do you think we should try it back on the right again?
Yeah.
Maybe that. Well,
Yeah.
one of my big problems with this is I think the process of it isn't 100% accurate. And hear me out on this. Like, there has to be, first off, the blocking has to be correct. Everybody putting a hat on a hat. You know who you're leaving open or who gets a free run and he's got to make miss. Because on a couple of those, he was just getting hit as soon as he's catching it. It has to be a little bit more with Lamar and the body language in the pocket where he's dropping back and he's looking it off, or he's dropping back like he's throwing deep. Boom, you turn, you throw it. That's what makes Aaron Rodgers so good. Like when he's grabbing that ball and taking that side step and throwing it out there, he's getting it out quick enough to where if somebody's off the line, his receiver can, get what he can. When it was Devontae Adams, it felt like he got 8 to 12 on every single play off the line of scrimmage. And then on top of it, it's just a matter of like the timing. It has to be right. So like I think reps with it would be important. And I'm not one of those guys. We talked about it a lot here. Like if they played in the preseason, would it have been any different? The Eagles didn't play their starters. They jumped out to 16-0, and then they fell flat. I just think that there's some of that's going to happen around the league as we get rolling. But inherently, like as we look at this team, the injuries are the thing that concerns me the most, not necessarily what we saw on the field.
Would you at all – it's the conversation you can't avoid when something like this happens. How do you talk about Jonathan Taylor in terms of where the Ravens are?
Yeah. Well, so like he can't play until week 5 after he comes off the PUP list.
Yep.
He said he's ready to go now, but since they put him on PUP, that's where he's going to be. And then what the asking price was. Like, so let me just say this because when the Colts called the Miami Dolphins,
they asked for Jalen Waddle, right? Which was, but we know
the first round pick.
But we know that's not happening. So, like, this is the part.
Yeah, I mean, but that's what they asked for. They asked for a premier receiver and a pick. Like, you're not getting.
Yes, they're not getting either of those things. For the record, they're not getting a first round pick or a premier receiver. That's not happening.
Yeah.
Like, this is the Colts know why it is that they've devalued Jonathan Taylor. So because they have a psychopath that's running the franchise, they can't make it reality. There's not going to be a team that's going to give you either of those things for Jonathan Taylor because every other team is treating running backs the same way that you are. That's the reason why we're having this conversation. So the real question to me is, if at some point the Colts, if Jonathan Taylor remains steadfast and says, dude, I'm not playing for you, like that's not, you can sit me down for 4 weeks and try to say, well, we tried. I'm telling you, I'm not playing for you. Deal with it. Either you're going to wait out. If somebody can get a hold of old man Irsay, crazy, drunk Irsay, and say, dude, we're nuts. We just got to move on and take whatever it is that we can get if we're not willing to sign the guy. Then the question becomes, if the market does crash to a normal place, does it make sense for the Ravens to dip their toes into that water?
I think it could if the compensation is fair. But again, like I'll go back to Jonathan Taylor. Like it's a necessary evil that he has to play this year to try to get himself the contract he wants. But do you think the Ravens are the team that are going to give him a contract extension?
And this is, but I would almost say like if you're exploring it, you're not even thinking about it. Like you're making a trade to sort of say the price has to come down to a place where if we don't get him back, then we didn't give up. Like we can maybe get a compensatory pick. If we paid a third and a fifth rounder for Jonathan Taylor and we get back a fourth, right? Was it worth it for us to have?
Oh, absolutely. As long as if he's looking at it ahead of time, it's absolutely worth it if that's the deal you make and he does stay healthy and gives you what you need, as a running back. But because you're talking about what a lot of people consider the best running back in football. It's not
right.
just another player. You're not just trading for. I mean, with all due respect to just throwing names out there, like I know Cam Akers didn't have a great day yesterday, but a Mark Ingram or somebody like that. You're not trading for just a stopgap thing. You're trading for a guy that can really help put you over the top. But again, ultimately, I think the end goal is you're not paying.
I think it's the reality. I mean, I just think that's where we are, and nothing's going to change that. What else? What jumped out at you the most? It was a brutal man. I had a terrible day betting. Oh God, I had a wretched day. What a weird ass day to start the season.
I should have listened to Jeremy when he told me and Caleb to hammer the Browns, and we didn't.
The problem for me was my lock was the Broncos, and I'm not going to make any excuses of why the lock didn't hit. I mean, but missing an extra point early on kills you. They give up the one drive, and then of course they get it back and they take a 16-10 lead in the fourth. I'm like, all right, well now Vegas has got to go for a touchdown. Oh, they're just going to get 4 pass interference calls and go down and get one. Cool, that's great.
Yep.
So yeah, that was that wasn't fun. But I had the Browns, I had the Packers, and even the Seattle over, man. Like, I even said that I like the Rams to score some points, but I love Seattle's offense. And Geno Smith was anything but average or good. He was so bad yesterday. So yeah, it was a really weird week one. I mean, we almost had the Vikings lose. We almost had the Saints lose. We almost had Jacksonville lose. The Steelers got mollywopped at home. And I don't even know what you want to call that with the Giants last night, but that was strange.
That was not football, is what I would call that last night. That was not football and was miserable. Okay, now I got to get to the important part with you because it came up earlier in the show, and I need to discuss this with you because you're a happily married man who's in a good relationship, a healthy relationship. I was chatting with Aditi Kinkhabwala earlier this morning, and she mentioned to me a story that, like, she's interested in getting Botox and her husband is opposed to it. And it reminded me of a conversation that Mrs. Clark and I have had a lot recently. And that conversation is that Mrs. Clark, she's had a couple of kids, right? And she looks great, but yet she is interested in having some breast augmentation surgery.
Okay.
And she comes to me, like, every 6 weeks and represents this to me. Like, hey, what do you think? And every time she does, I say, I'm not going to have an opinion about this subject. And the reason I do that is because I know whatever my opinion is will be weaponized against me. If I say yes, then immediately I'm going back, oh, so you don't think I look good enough? You don't like immediately that's the way it goes. If I say no, then I'm not supportive of her. I'm not supportive of something that she wants to do.
Yeah.
So I have avoided it like the plague. Every time it comes up, it is how about that? Well, look at the weather outside. What a day it is. Did you see that Fast and the Furious movie? I hear it's doing well.
Yeah.
I'm that guy every time. Have you dealt?
Do you not want her to get it, or is it just
Jeremy? In my heart of hearts, I really don't care, and that's the other part of this is that, like, I think she looks great. I'm a very fortunate man. I look like a mongoloid, and I have a very attractive wife, right? Like,
well, it sounds like you've come to the perfect person because this is the same exact situation I have.
You know a thing or two about this topic, yes?
Yeah. My wife was talking about having a breast reduction surgery, which.
Now that,
makes me
of course,
very lucky man.
Hang on a second. I believe we have a quote about what having breast reduction surgery is, Griffin. Don't we have that available to us? I believe we have a quote. Yes. Hang on. Oh, great. Dynamite radio producer. I've been hoping to get him to be more like a radio producer because now he's a radio producer.
It's like slapping God across the face for giving you a gorgeous gift.
Thank you. That's exactly what it is. That's exactly. No, don't celebrate it, Griffin. You really missed on timing. Terrible time.
Yeah, and that's the conversation I had with my wife because I said she's not allowed to because we've got to have the divorce first because I'm going to try to get one of them in the divorce since I'll get half. So she definitely cannot remove any parts of it. But yeah, like I've told her I'm not thrilled about it, but if it's a health thing for her and her back, I can't argue.
Of course not, right? You're going to support her. You're going to support her in her health. Yeah, I get that. By the way, I was telling the story recently. A friend of mine, and I'm not going to mention her name because we're still very close friends, but a friend of mine had breast reduction surgery when we were in our early 20s, and she called me one day, and I was just hanging out at my buddy's house. She called me. She said, and this is not a girl that this is just a friend, right? Like we never even hooked up. Like it's just a friend. She called me. She said, hey, I don't think I told you, but I'm having breast reduction surgery tomorrow. And I said, oh, well, good luck. I don't know. Do you need somebody to pick you up or something? Like, why are you calling me about this? She said, well, do you want to see him before I have the surgery? And I was like, yes, of course I do. She said, okay, where are you? And I said, well, I'm at Matt's house. She said, I'll drive over. I was like, what? This is the nicest thing any human has ever done for me. That just drove to where I was so I could say goodbye, what a kind gesture. I don't think that anyone's ever done anything as nice for me in my life.
I don't think the answer to that question's ever been no.
Imagine that phone call, right?
I mean, I would sit here and tell you that I have seen many a pair of boobies.
Right.
I still want to see as many as I possibly can.
Was this Ron White? Which of the redneck comedy guys did this bit? Which of them?
The booby bit?
Yeah, the bit where they were like, I don't care if you're an old lady. I'm going to take a look. I'll take a gander. Yeah. You said to me, I'll have a look.
We were at Ozfest. I may have told you the story where not System of a Down. God, who sang "Let the Bodies Hit the Floor"?
Drowning Pool.
Drowning Pool. Like
Jeez.
their song had just went like #1 or whatever. It was like extremely popular, and they were playing the small stage at Ozfest. And I remember I was like, "Hey man, I want to see this band. I really like the songs they had out." And this is before the lead singer died. But so we go over to see it, and there's this girl like on a guy's shoulder. She's a little plus sized lady. Nothing wrong with that though. A little extra cushion for the pushing.
Yes.
Yeah. So long story short, she's up on the guy's shoulders, and everybody's chanting, "Show your bleep, show your bleep." I've never seen this happen in my life except for this one time. She showed them, and it looked like a sock puppet and a banana and a tube sock, and they were pointing in different directions, were totally different size. In unison, the crowd goes, "Put your shirt back on." Like, didn't talk about it. Like, everybody jumped back aboard for the worst pair of boobs I've ever seen.
No. Oh, that's not okay. That's not okay.
And my sister won't go to a concert with me anymore.
Well, it's weird, right? Like, you guys had such a good time otherwise. I mean, Drowning Pool was there.
She makes fun of her boobs, and that's it.
One time, right? But you were like, but I still wanted to see him. The moment for me, I made this joke a lot. I don't know if you ever we went to an HF festival, and I bumped into the girl from high school that was like the quiet girl, right? Like the girl that like no one ever talked to, that didn't go to the parties, you know what I mean? Like that you knew, but you kind of only knew. You didn't dislike in any way. Like you just didn't know her at all, like at all, even a little bit, because she was extraordinarily quiet at all times. And you're there with your friends, and my buddies and I were there. We're like, wow, that's, so-and-so, the quiet girl. You see her over there? And she walks up and immediately, I swear to God, within 2 seconds, like had ripped her shirt off and was like, "Put me up on your shoulders." And I'm like, wow, what's going on, quiet girl?
I want to be Glenn's friend.
Right? It's
Glenn gets to see boobies all the time.
Unbelievable, man. Well, that was a much younger man, my friend. Much younger man.
I guess those things, that can get difficult too. Like, as you're growing up and becoming an adult, and I'm still very immature in a lot of things. Like some guy tagged me on Twitter last night. And he's like, you're weirdly obsessed with
I
poop,
saw
and
this.
I don't understand it.
You started a fight about poop. It was the weirdest thing ever. And then you were like,
so
you're
stupid
obsessed with me
somebody
being obsessed about poop.
Yeah, the other guy, like there was a guy that had tweeted about someone probably wearing their boxer shorts backwards with the hole in the back or whatever, and so like immediately my mind goes to, well, why would somebody do that unless it was the poop out of it? So I tweeted back at him and say, hey, I always did that because I thought you're supposed to poop out of that hole. It's way too big to take a penis out of or something, so anyway, so then some guy immediately writes me. So then I immediately chirp back and trying to have fun with it. But, people are, I guess,
What a
different
dumb
strokes for different folks
show
than what you want to
we
do,
did.
man. So
What a dumb
I don't know how
show.
I'm trying to wrap this
Yeah,
up.
right. I don't know where to go from there, Jeremy.
Yeah.
No, it's.
I don't know how I got
I
off
think that
poop,
was the
but it
appropriate
happened.
response, though, for the record. I think that was the right thing. I think you handled that appropriate.
Yeah, instead of like taking shots at one another.
All right. We can talk about ConcreteLocks.com again, right?
Yeah, so it's kind of cool, man. I can at least talk about it here and in other places and social media. But so yeah, ConcreteLocks.com. I missed my first lock, which sucks, and I'm angry. It was funny because I had a really good weekend, Saturday and Sunday. I think I lost Texas Tech, and if you watched the end of that game, it's brutal, as Texas Tech was winning the whole time, and then Oregon takes a 1-point lead, and Texas Tech's going to win, and they turn the ball over, and it gets taken in for a touchdown.
I had not seen that. Oh,
yeah,
God.
so that one was rough. That went from me being 4-1 in my top plays to being 3-2, and I was 3-2 in my top plays on Saturday and Sunday, but I missed. I loved Colorado, or I loved Nebraska. And for anybody that watched Saturday, Nebraska was a pros pick. All the professionals were on Nebraska, and the public was all over Colorado. And it doesn't happen often, but the public got it right this time. And so, yeah, it was kind of a weird weekend where my favorite plays on both days missed, but overall I had a winning day. So, yeah, it's been good.
All right. Of course, still the Big Bad Morning Show, 105.7 The Fan. New Twitter handle I noticed as well, JCon.
Yeah, I had to switch up to @JCon Sports for promotional things.
JCon Sports is how you follow him. And still we'll be finding pics at PressBoxOnline.com as well, right?
Yes.
There you go.
They'll be there as well.
There you go. Love you, buddy. Let's talk again next Monday, all right?
All right, guys. I'll
Thank
see
you, pal. It's Jeremy Conn, 105.7 The Fan, the Big Bad Morning Show. All right, when we come back in, we will recap Picks Weekend, which it wasn't like the worst Picks Weekend I've ever had, but it was a week where everybody else did really well.
Yeah.
So not great for your boy.
Get used to it.
Not great. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Is that a thing? Not great for your boy who is dipped in. There was a big turnaround this week for one particular member of our crew. So we'll talk about that, and we'll dish out some pats on the ass when we come back in on Glenn Clark Radio.
All electronic tolling is here to stay in Maryland, and DriveEasyMD.com helps you cruise a little easier. We're Maryland's tolling resource, home to EasyPass, pay-by-plate, and video tolling. It's never been easier to pay your way. DriveEasyMD.com will keep you moving.
All aboard! The Orioles train keeps on moving, and it's ahead of schedule. The Birds are motoring towards a playoff run here in 2023 as their magic number keeps getting smaller and smaller. I'm Paul Valley, and you can find me along with Zach Goodman every Saturday from 10 a.m. to noon right here on the Bat-Around. We'll navigate you through the playoff push as the Orioles look to put an exclamation point on what is turning out to be the best season of the last 40 years. So join us on the Orioles train, and let's enjoy the ride together right here on the Bat-Around.
Visit Harford County this fall. Celebrate arts across Harford September 15th through the 30th with dance, theater, music, and visual arts. September 29th through October 1st is the largest Italian festival in Maryland, featuring entertainment, cooking demonstrations, a bocce tournament, and family fun. If you're headed to the Maryland 5-Star, stay and play in Harford County. While you're there, enjoy the scenic views atop the King and Queen seats and experience pumpkin patches, corn mazes, and fall brews along their Harford Libation Trail. For more info, head to visitharford.com. Maryland open.
Picking a restaurant to try for the first time? Let's look at the Costas Inn. Here's a few checklist items. Quality of the food? Check. Quality of service? Check. Does restaurant have plenty of free parking? Check. And finally, does restaurant have delicious steamed crabs, crab cakes, crab soup, and specials galore? Check, check, check. Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. They check all the boxes.
The latest edition of Pressbox is available now. On the cover, Bo Smolka dives into what's next for Lamar Jackson after receiving one of the biggest contracts in football history. Is Lamar ready to take the Ravens to the next level, now with a new offensive coordinator and new wide receivers? Also inside, we look at what new football coaches Brian Newberry and Pete Shinnick bring to Navy and Towson, respectively. And we meet players from the college football and soccer programs around the state. Pressbox is available for free at over 500 area locations, including 60 Royal Farm stores. And you can always find the entire edition as well as the best daily coverage of the O's, Ravens, and Terps at PressBoxOnline.com.
It's another exciting weekend of affordable family fun at Prince George's Stadium with the Bowie Bay Sox. Last weekend of the regular season kicks off on Friday the 8th with Adley Rutschman Night. Mystery Adley Rutschman giveaway items for the first 750 fans. Fireworks on Saturday with the return of our 1K beer run. See how fast you can complete the race while getting 3 beers down. And our Birdland celebration on Sunday. Free autograph items for the first 1,000 fans. Get your tickets now by calling 301-805-6000 or anytime online at baysox.com. The Bowie Bay Sox. Let us be your 9-inning vacation.
6 chicken tenders made from fresh, never frozen Royal Farms world-famous chicken, a family-sized order of Western fries, honey mustard dipping sauce, and a 2-liter bottle of Dr. Pepper. It's Royal Farms' new Tucker's Tenders Meal. It's Justin Tucker's favorite, and at only $19.99, it'll be your favorite meal, too. The new Tucker's Tenders Meal, available only at Royal Farms. Now you can kick back, relax, and eat like a champion. Real fresh, real fast, Royal Farms.
Whether your focus is luxury and comfort, convenience and technologically advanced connectivity, or sporty performance and aggressive styling, we've got the perfect Highlander for you. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Highlanders from your local Toyota dealer today.
Don't forget about Project Game Day after every Ravens game this season. It's kind of like this show, except Rita's also there, so I actually think it's pretty good. But hey, you're already here now, so why don't you go ahead and keep listening to GCR?
I don't know who's writing these promos, but I got some serious issues with some of these things that Paul is saying. I appreciate Paul providing us some new rejoiners for the football season. All right, let's get into it. Picks Recap is brought to you by Live Casino and Hotel. Griffin, you want to tell us anything about what's going on over at Live Casino and Hotel?
Yeah, I want to tell you about David's. Something new here at Live Casino Hotel, Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Check out David's new menu featuring barbecue ribs, strawberry cheesecake waffles, Blue Bay mussels, and of course, snow crab legs by the pound. Your perfect gin and tonic is just a shake away as you craft your perfect combo, and be sure to stay for live music every Thursday through Sunday. That's at David's at Live Casino and Hotel Maryland. Adirondack Mills, must be 21. Please play responsibly. For help, visit MDGamblingHelp.org. mdgamblinghelp.org, or call 1-800-GAMBLER.
So we're doing this season-long picks contest. There's 10 of us, and at the top of the table, we're playing for some cash. Again, you all have till the end of week 3.
Then what happens?
What?
Then what happens?
Then you're no longer in the running to win.
Oh, okay.
Like,
cool.
You think that's just the way that it goes. So, like, if you don't get your money in, you can't win the money. But you still would have to pay the penalty if you lose. Nobody gets out of that. The penalty, of course, this year is overwhelming. The penalty is you got to dress up like the Notre Dame mascot. You got to go take Irish dance lessons. A lesson. You have to take a lesson and then perform what it is that you learned at your lesson. You also have to perform musically, as you have to perform Nothing Compares to You and Zombie by the Cranberries. You also have to have a bit of an a meal, if you will. That meal, tripe,
delicious,
haggis,
oh,
and blood sausage,
Ugh.
washed down with an Irish coffee.
Oh, that's not bad.
Will Levis style.
Oh.
Yeah, coffee
Oh.
and Irish coffee and mayonnaise. It's a lot that's gone into this punishment. It's going to be a terrible day for somebody. I'm not that far off from being in that spot. Here's where we are this week. Picks. Yuck. Charlotte, Maryland. Maryland was 24.5-point favorites. I did not get it, and boy, it was dicey for a half.
Mm-hmm.
If you did not watch the game, probably about as well off. There was not a whole lot to be seen. Ultimately, Maryland did get things going in the second half, but they fell behind 14-0 early, and took a little while to get going. Ultimately, they do win, and they ended up winning somewhat comfortably, but not covering the 24.5. So, Paul Valley, Ryan Shell, John Proctor, Kyle Ottenheimer missed on that point. The good news for Ryan Shell is one of the very few that he missed out on. It was quite the turnaround week for old Ryan.
Yeah, Ryan needed that.
As Jeremy said, this felt like it was maybe reverse Lockey, Nebraska, Colorado, and all of the pros were on Nebraska in this one. By the way, all of these odds were provided by Superbook. Of course, you can use the code GlennClark23, sign up at superbook.com or download the Superbook app, and when you use that code, you make a same-day first bet up to $250. It will be matched, win or lose, with free bets. By the way, line is out for Ravens-Bengals. Bengals 3.5-point favorites. So if you're saying to yourself, I wonder if that number might move if the Ravens get good injury news in the next couple of days, then maybe you try to get on it early. If you say to yourself, yeah, but it could move the other way if they get bad injury news. Just worth pointing out, early line, courtesy of Superbook, 3.5-point favorites, the Cincinnati Bengals, for the Week 2 matchup out in Cincinnati. The total is 46.5. That's what we know so far. Anyway, the number was 3. Colorado backed it up. They handled their business once again against Nebraska, winning 36-14. They'll get College Game Day next week. It's a brutal Week 3 for
college football.
It's just not a lot of interesting matchups in Week 3. Colorado State is interesting, I'm sure, within the state of Colorado, but not a whole lot of other places, and yet that's where game day is going because Colorado is just the story of college football to begin the season.
College football capital of the world is what
Sure, whatever you want to call it. But yes, the only one of us was willing to bite. That was John in Little Rock. John in Little Rock
Darn
is now
John.
in last place.
Ooh,
just keep that in
John.
mind. A lot of us bid on Alabama.
Yeah.
Not only did they not cover the 7, of course, they did not win even outright. Texas looks legit. Alabama's quarterback problems also quite legit. 34-24. That was a slow game. That was like a game where nothing was happening for the first half of the game, and you were like, ugh. And then all of a sudden in the second half, Quinn Ewers came to life, and Texas put up a ton of points. Got a pick 6, too, that changed some things. So only Ryan Shell, Kyle Ottenheimer, and Ken Zales come away with that point. Thursday night game, obviously. Whatever. Yes, we already covered it. Kansas City was favored by 4.5. They lost outright, so I missed that point, as did Nick Kelly, John in Little Rock. John Proctor, and Andrew Stetka. Cincinnati, Cleveland. Who saw that coming? That was really weird. What a weird day.
Joe Burrow's 1-5 against the Browns.
Go figure, man. Go figure. And it's obviously the weather stunk, and Joe Burrow was coming off an injury, but like they did nothing. Nothing. Pull up Joe Burrow's line from yesterday real quick.
14 for 31. 14 for 31, 82 yards. And not. Did he throw an interception? No.
Deshaun Watson actually threw one of the worst interceptions I've ever seen, and yet they won 24-3.
Yeah, that pick was horrible.
Brutal.
Looked over at Red Zone and
brutal.
They had a 20.4 QBR. Burrow did.
Nick Kelly, John in Little Rock, and Kyle Ottenheimer, the only ones that were on Cleveland for that one, so they all get that point. Boy, Pittsburgh was really good. I pulled up the number. They were 14-4-3 under Mike Tomlin as home dogs. Got to hammer Pittsburgh, baby. No, they got hammered. Don't hammer them. They got hammered.
Brandon Ayuk
went off. San Francisco looked every bit the part of a Super Bowl favorite, winning 30-7 on the road in Pittsburgh to open the season. So a point stolen by Ryan Shell, as well as Kyle Ottenheimer and Ken Zales. I will not be taking questions at this time about my bullishness about the Chicago Bears. I will go back. I will regroup. I will reconsider. I'm not ready to abandon altogether, but not great. They lose at home as the quarterback changes, but reality doesn't. They just get hammered by the Packers no matter what. Always, always, always.
Packers just have another quarterback.
Maybe. And that was without Christian Watson.
Yeah, I know. That was when once Christian Watson was ruled out, I was like, great. Yeah, the Bears are gonna.
Yep. 38-20. And it was a game that was, again, much like that Texas-Alabama game, that was like a 7-6 game into the second half, and you're just like, ugh, this is a slog. And then all of a sudden, Green Bay were dogs, and they went outright. That was pretty split. So Griffin.
Of course.
Yeah, sure, of course. Nick Kelly. Ryan Shell,
there's too many
Andrew
people now.
Stecca. I know, right? It's harder to do this. And we used to have a color-coordinated system. Can you please talk to John? If you've got to do it, you've got to do it. But for like the sake of on the air, like I knew they used to tell me what the final score of the game was at the bottom, so I could do the segment better, right? I just need you to talk to John, and I need you to do it like ASAP because I think he's flying to like Jamaica or something. Mexico. He's going to Mexico for a wedding.
Which is it?
It's Mexico. I do know that. Cancun or whatever. He's going to Cancun for a wedding this week. So I need you to talk to him ASAP about how you can take over to make it more palatable for doing the on-air segment because that actually is producing. Moral of the story is half of us were on Chicago, half of us were on Green Bay. Only the Lone Wolf picks did not work out for the Lone Wolves this week. It was a bad week to be a Lone Wolf. All 0 for 3 on as far as Lone Wolves are concerned. Miami. Boy, I bet the Chargers aren't going to think about J.C. Jackson getting called for a pass interference on a Hail Mary at the end of the first half. I bet they'll never think about that. If you didn't catch it, by the way, Miami does in spectacular fashion. What a day for Tua and Tyreek Hill. They have a thing for week 1 in Miami, don't they? They look pretty good last year in week 1 here in Baltimore. They look really good offensively in week 1.
It was week 2, I guess.
Last year?
When the Dolphins beat
the Ravens?
Yeah.
You sure that wasn't week 1?
Yeah, because week 1 was the Jets.
Oh, and it was just it was completely forgettable in every way.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Oh, the reason why I think it was week 1. I did week 1 by myself post game last year. It was the first time I did a show with Rita. It was the first show that we did, and it was.
Gotcha. So so that Jets game, everyone was like, yeah, I mean they won.
Yeah. Great start to the season for Miami, 36-34. They beat the Chargers in a thriller. Probably would have been a good game to put on national TV. Weird.
Yeah.
Weird how that works. Instead, they put it on for nobody. But I found out yesterday I still have Red Zone. Oh, this is one of those sort of thing. The NFL hooked me up with an NFL Plus subscription for free.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that was and by the way, I'm pretty sure it's because
for what?
True story. I think it's because of Rod Woodson. So when Rod Woodson, his episode of A Football Life was coming on.
Oh, because
we had Rod was coming on the show that week, and so I messaged a friend of mine with the NFL and said, "Hey, just wondering if there's any chance I could screen the Football Life episode before I talk to Rod." And this person was like, "Actually, I can hook you up with a free subscription to NFL Plus." And I was like, Hey, buddy, thank you. That's very nice of you. Then I was like, I'm not going to use that. What would I use that for? Apparently, I get Red Zone for free.
Wow.
So great news for your pal. Really good news. So I don't have to worry about all your stupid, television windows any longer. I can just watch Red Zone when the game is dumb. So that's what I did yesterday, and I got to see a lot of the Chargers-Dolphins game, which I enjoyed. The only person that was on the Chargers was Paul Valley. He misses out on that. And then for some reason, Andrew Stecca was on the Texans, and that was obviously a miss as well. And by the way, if you missed it, at halftime, the Dolphins threw a Hail Mary down the field. It wasn't even close to the end zone.
Yes, I just watched it.
It wasn't even close to the end zone. And J.C. Jackson, I don't remember who he pushed down, but he just pushed someone down. Now, the awkward part, and I said this on Twitter afterwards, is if I were to offend J.C. Jackson because he was getting killed, no one has ever called anything on a Hail Mary. Hail Marys at the end of halves, you have forever been able to get away with anything that you wanted in those circumstances. Now, admittedly, that's definitely pass interference. There's no getting
But they weren't going to do anything. Yeah, right.
It's that awkward thing where, like, yeah, for something that obvious and blatant, it probably should be called. But again, go back and watch every Hail Mary attempt for the last 50 years and tell me how many times there has been obvious contact that would rise to being the level of pass interference by the letter of the law that we've just agreed we don't call because it's a Hail Mary, it's a jump ball, whatever happens, happens. So it's an awkward spot to be in. But they lost by 2, and they gave up 3 free points at the end of the first half. Bit awkward. Ravens comfortably win 25-9, even if it wasn't pretty, so they covered the 10 points. Only Andrew Stecca missed that. So for the week, worst week belonged to Paul Valley at 3-6, as well as John Proctor at 3-6. Best week belonged to Ken Zales, who was already leading the race, and he went 8-1. Joined at 7-2 by Kyle Ottenheimer and Ryan Chell. Big turnaround. Griffin and Nick Kelly both go 6-3. I went 4-5 along with Andrew Stecca and John in Little Rock.
Andrew Stecca returns to earth, it seems.
Yeah, right. So now, 13-6 atop the table, Ken Zales. 2 games back, Griffin and Kyle Ottenheimer. 3 games back, Andrew Stecca and Nick Kelly. 5 games back. Eek. Myself, Paul Valley, and Ryan Chell. I'm tied with Ryan Chell.
3 games under.
Not good. And then John Proctor and John in Little Rock. The Johns struggling. They're bringing up back end as they are tied in last place, 7-12, 6 games back in our picks contest. Let's quickly do a recap, or let's quickly do Pats on the Ass. Let's do that. Pats on the Ass brought to you this morning by the print issue of Press Box, which is available for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms, any of the hundreds of locations around town where you find Press Box. Read it all, PressBoxOnline.com. Bo Smolka's cover story about Lamar Jackson, now moving into the contract portion of his career. That's a great read. A lot of college football content in there as well. Go pick it up today for free at your neighborhood Royal Farms. Oh, did you see what happened to Morgan this weekend? They were going to beat Akron.
Oh, yeah.
They were going to beat Akron on the road, beat an FBS team.
I didn't see, like, the very end.
And then fumbled the ball. All they had to do was run the ball. They needed, like, 1 first down. Fumbled, picked up, ran back for a touchdown.
Man.
Sucks so much. Now, still a statement from Morgan that they followed up a road win at Richmond with a great defensive performance. Their defense is unbelievable. I forgot that Jordan Tolles ended up back there. Jordan Tolles, who once upon a time was at LSU, back at Morgan State. Their defense looks incredible, but that was heartbreaking for them. Tough one for Towson. They lose to Monmouth on Saturday. Navy does get in the win column, but it was against Wagner, and it wasn't a very impressive performance. They got a much tougher game on Thursday night there at Memphis, so big step up in competition there. All right, Pats on the Ass, you know the drill. 5 Ravens, 2 must be offensive players, 2 must be defensive players. The 5th can be another offensive player, another defensive player, a special teams player, or a coach. Rank them 5 to 1, with number 1 being your man of the match. I'll begin my number 5. It was difficult. There was a lot of people I consider for number 5. Odell, obviously, I consider for number 5. But it was tough to get a second offensive player on the list because it wasn't. Like a lot of people put Justice Hill on their list. God bless, he ran for 1 yard per carry yesterday. Like, what am I supposed to do with that? I understand he was the guy that ran the touchdowns in. He ran for 1 yard per carry yesterday. I can't pretend like Justice Hill was worthy of being on this list. Kevin Zeitler ended up being my choice, in large part because he was the one that pounced on the fumble from Lamar Jackson and kept him alive. I also thought he was the one guy on the offensive line that, for the most part, held up yesterday and was not quite as guilty as some other parties were of a lot of issues during the course of the game. So Kevin Zeitler, by a nose, got that spot for me over Odell Beckham, who was the next in consideration.
I went offensive line too and I went a different guy that I thought Tyler Linderbaum looked pretty good for what was a lot of issues with the offensive line, especially early.
I think my problem is when there's so many pre-snap penalties.
You think
the
it's the
center. It's not that necessarily the center is the one committing the penalties as much as the center is typically the one that's supposed to handle like all pre-snap communications and things like that. So I can't absolve him when there's a lot of pre-snap penalties.
Gotcha. Since he wasn't penalized, that's why I did lean towards him, and I thought he looked good when I was watching how his battles. So I went Linderbaum.
My number 4 is Patrick Queen, who was excellent, and as we talked about earlier in the show, is just unfortunately continuing to seemingly price himself out of Baltimore. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there is some world where they can pay a lot of money to Patrick Queen after paying a lot of money to Roquan Smith, but I don't think so, and it looks like Patrick Queen is setting up to make a lot of money. He was awesome yesterday, finished with 11 tackles, a sack, a TFL, a pass breakup, and a quarterback hit. But other than that...
Yeah, the pass breakup was pretty big.
Yeah, it was pretty big.
So I gave him some props today. I haven't even higher on my list.
Oh, how about that? Yeah.
So
what a world.
4,
what a world.
Yeah.
What's going on here? Is hell freezing over? I was ready for Griffin to be like, yeah, I don't know. He was okay.
I mean, the sack, he was untouched. I mean, like, I could have made
God's sake.
I could have made that sack.
Jesus
The pass
Christ.
breakup was impressive,
It
and,
was.
he was good. Ronald Darby is my number 4.
Okay. I mean, it's fine.
This was the secondary we had so many questions about. And, I mean, I know it was the Texans.
Too many guys played well defensively for me to consider Ronald Darby.
Yeah,
Somebody
I was
put
thinking
a couple
Ardarius
people.
Washington.
Yeah, a couple people put Ardarius Washington on
Yeah.
their list. I'm like, too many guys played well for me to go with like the based on our expectations list.
Right. I think it gives us hope for next week going into Cincinnati and, the receivers that they have.
Okay, I'll let you have that hope.
I mean, if Nico Collins and the ghost of Robert Woods were running circles around this secondary, then...
Well, yeah, you'd feel like hell.
But they did what they were supposed to do against an inferior wide receiving
I actually thought that Robert Woods played well yesterday.
Yes, he did.
And it made me think, like, again, when in the picture of me thinking that Houston could be building to something, it's like Robert Woods maybe is a nice player for them to have for this season in that process.
Yeah.
My number 3, I thought it was his best day as a pro. It was Odafe Oweh. He was great, and yes, it didn't show up in sacks. But as a team, they got 5 sacks, and the number that jumps off the page for Odafe Oweh is 3 quarterback hits. Odafe Oweh was active throughout the course of the day, was involved, was very helpful against the run. I thought Odafe Oweh played his most complete. Now, again, I'll acknowledge I'm not paying attention to Odafe Oweh on every snap every game, but it was the most beyond just the one play that he made against Kansas City that Odafe Oweh has ever jumped off the page for me. So Odafe Oweh was my number 3.
Well, PFF gave him 4 total QB hits.
4, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
7 total
The
pressures.
official stat book has him with 3.
And then, so Queen was my 3. If you want to jump to 2?
No, I'll go to number 2 next.
Okay.
Number 2 to me, number 2 and number 1 were the easy ones for me. Number 2 is Zay Flowers, who, again, like the only thing I'll say is like you can't always just throw the ball underneath Zay Flowers. You're gonna have to. Like I started to get a little bit wary of it at some point. Like, ooh, this feels like a crutch. But we get it, we see it, and the catch downfield to the left. That one was Lamar's best throw of the day by far. And we saw that he has a little bit more in his arsenal than just being that underneath guy. You hope that more of the underneath portion of the field is open with Mark Andrews coming back in the next couple of weeks. But hard not to like what you saw from Zay Flowers. He was number 2.
Yeah, sounds like we're probably going to have our switched. I put Roquan at 2.
Okay.
I mean, Roquan.
God bless.
Maybe it's a made-up record, but franchise record for week 1 total tackles.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care about that at
Yeah.
all. I just know that he was the most dominant player on the field by far.
I agree. I mean, he's getting paid $20 million.
I understand that, but that's what he was.
Yeah, he was.
He was the most dominant player on the field.
So 2 for me for Roquan.
So stupid. That's so stupid. Roquan Smith was the best player. He absolutely dominated the football field. He was a commanding presence at all times. He looked like a guy that was ready to take on the role of the pass rush by himself. Like, oh, you didn't do anything in pass rush? No worries. I'll just handle that too. God, he was unbelievable, man. Like, it's unreal how good this cat is.
To me, it felt like the story was Zay Flowers, and this is
that
a
would have
position that the Ravens are so.
God bless you. If it was big downfield throws and him stretching the field that way, I may be more inclined to consider it. And I would also have to be partnered with like the offense as a whole playing better. The offense didn't have a good day yesterday.
Yeah, I mean Lamar threw. I know a lot of it was probably scripted this way, but 22 passes, he was targeted 10 times.
I understand that, and again, that's why to me it actually teetered into crutch territory. It teetered into. You can't just throw the ball in the flat to Zay Flowers all the time. And what I'm worried about is that like that becomes part of the plan for how you make up for the loss of J.K. Dobbins. Just keep throwing the ball in the flat to Zay Flowers.
It is weird, but I feel like I feel better about this even more than Marquise Brown, even though he started really strong too, because it just feels different. Like we kind of knew. I feel like we kind of knew.
It's a different way of using a player.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he was so dynamic. Like they used him, and they went downfield with him. They used him, as an extension of the run game, and I think that's going to be important for all year. Like that's going to be.
I will always prefer seeing more plays downfield in a passing game because I don't think you're going to win a lot of games when they matter doing this little downfield. Which isn't to say they didn't do anything downfield. I understand that it's not. I was looking at the pass chart earlier, and it'd be wrong.
Big Odell catch, and then Zay had that big catch.
Right. And the one in the middle of the field to Rashad Bateman.
And they only threw it 22 times. Like, they weren't even...
I understand that. But I'm always going to want to see an offense, to me, has to be predicated on downfield throwing to win in the NFL in 2023. And
I think Zay showed that he can...
I think he showed he's capable of being a part of that, and I like the things that Zay Flowers brings to the table. But I'm not going to come out of it and say, oh, this is going to make it a wildly different offense, or this is why the Ravens are going to be so different. I need to see the next element of it, but still incorporating that moving forward. That being said, for the game that was played, he was the second best player on the field to me. Like, they put the ball in his hands a lot, and he did some good things. So it's not me being discouraged by it, but I would disagree. I was far more encouraged after Marquise Brown's first game than I was after this game because like when you it's not just the numbers, it's downfield. It's stretching the field. It's opening things up in ways that that's indefensible. I hope that proves to be the case with Zay Smith. I just made up a new player.
Roquan Flowers.
Yeah, it's Roquan Flowers. With Zay Flowers, I hope that's the case. I didn't even say Zay Jones, which is what everybody else is saying. I hope that proves to be the case with Zay Flowers. I'm using moderation in how I react to what I saw from him first.
Yeah.
It was good. It was a good day. I hope there's a lot more of that coming, and I hope it's not just all in the flat. I hope that it is more imaginative with the ability. One of the things we talked about is the stuff in the flat, to me, is what you do to try to get the offense going. When you're bogged down, you say, hey, what we want to do isn't working. We just need to get the ball in Zay Flowers' hands and see if he can go get some yards. That to me isn't what you design for a game. Now, if the design was, but we want to get him going as an NFL player in his debut, completely understand that. But I wouldn't want to design scripts based on that being a part of the first 20 to 30 plays that I write out for the day. That, to me, is what you do when what you're trying to do isn't working. Then you come back and say, all right, it's time to start throwing the ball to Zay in the flat and see what happens there.
Jamison Hensley had this earlier. Most receptions in a career debut by a Ravens player, 9. Zay Flowers.
How about that? How about that? All right, very good. Those are pats on the ass. We will get them up at glennclarkradio.com here momentarily. How pressing is Tidbit?
I mean, I guess it's not that pressing.
Like, would it still be good tomorrow?
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
It's just NFL Week 1 stuff, so probably all week.
Okay. Let's hold it. It's 12:32. Let's hold it for tomorrow. All right. Like, I know we joked about being on until 4 o'clock, but let's try to not. Let's hold Tidbit for tomorrow, and we'll get into Tubular. Tubular is brought to you by, unless you're going to be very hurt by it. I don't want to hurt your feelings.
I'll do the quick one. Nick Saban, his first double-digit home loss as a college football head coach since he was at LSU in 2003 when Florida beat LSU 19-7. That was over 7,000 days ago.
Wow, that is kind of wild. All right, very good. Tubular is brought to you by your local Toyota dealer and buyatoyota.com. The Toyota Tacoma comes in a range of models and trim lines, so you can choose the perfect Tacoma to reflect your unique personality and driving habits. Check out buyatoyota.com for deals on new Tacomas from your local Toyota dealer today. Cardinals-Orioles, 6:30 on Masson, Dakota Hudson, and Dean Kramer, the pitching matchup for the series opener. Do we know if Drew Rahm is pitching this week?
I believe he should be pitching on Wednesday.
How about that?
I think.
Of course, John
is the
Means
way it
pitching
lines up.
tomorrow. We'll talk more. That's not a lot for me to say. Like, they won the series. That's good. They gave up 23 hits and won a game, which is wild. I'm worried about Grayson Rodriguez because he's one of the guys that you can count on, and you sure as F can't count on Jack Flaherty, and none of us are really counting on this is. And so now John Means goes under a microscope like immediately.
Yeah, I mean,
it's borderline miraculous that he's even pitching, and we're immediately like, hey, by the way, dude,
can
we're
you
also
be that
going to
guy
need
from
you to
May
be
2021.
Yeah, really good, really quickly. It's rough. But yeah, that's tonight, 6:30, the opener. Loyola Soccer's at Fordham at 4 o'clock on ESPN+. Of course, Monday Night Football tonight, Bills-Jets, 8:15 on both ABC and ESPN, and there is a Manning cast if that's what floats your boat.
Of course it does.
Sure. Baseball this afternoon, Braves Phillies, 1 o'clock on MLB Network. Yankees, Red Sox at 7. Nice to see those teams get some attention. Padres, Dodgers tonight at 10. Masson 2, Nationals, Pirates at 6:30. MLB TV, Athletics, Astros at 8. ESPN Plus also has Cubs, Rockies at 8:40. The USA Network for WWE Monday Night Raw at 8. Anything non-sports-wise?
No.
Okay. That's where
the
we
Halloween Baking Championship, Season 9 on the Food Network.
Can't miss that. Can't miss that. That's where we are. All right, thanks today to Dr. David Chao. Thanks to Rod Woodson. Thanks to Aditi Kinkhabwala. Thanks to Jeremy Conn. We'll get it all up in the greatest hits section of the
Oh, my God, it's so good.
tab at GlennClarkRadio.com. Tomorrow, Michael Lombardi is scheduled to join us tomorrow. Of course, you now know him from VSiN, former NFL executive. He's got a new book out. He'll tell us all about that. I was supposed to do some reading over the weekend and forgot to do the homework, so I'm going to be stressed tonight. But I'll squeeze in as much reading as I can this evening.
You won't be able to watch the Manning cast, I guess.
Ah, God, that'll be a real shame. Tonight's also supposed to be trivia night.
Oh.
I might have to bail on trivia tonight. Oh, that would suck.
Just bring the book, right? And just
I really have to do the homework. It's bad. All right. Also tomorrow, Todd
Joe
Blackledge.
Serpico. Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Joe
Todd
Serpico will get
Blackledge.
us ready for Waiver Wire Wednesday. We'll talk about the Ravens running back situation. And Todd Blackledge from NBC, he, of course, had the call for Maryland-Charlotte on Saturday night, so we'll talk to him about what he saw from the Terps. Thanks to everybody at PressBox, all of our great sponsors and partners, including Live Casino and Hotel Maryland, the Maryland 5-Star, Glory Days Grill, Dorchester County, the Bowie Bay Sox, Royal Farms, Costa Sin, Superbook, Sports, the Baltimore Orioles, Birdland Sports, Easy Pass MD, Harford County, your local Toyota dealer, buyatoyota.com. Thanks to Griffin, at Griffin_Bass. Follow us, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, at Glenn Clark Radio. Have a great Monday evening. Go Birds. Duke sucks.